Chapter 131. Sichu was furious. He did not threaten Yun Jian anymore. Instead, he waved his hand and called for his bodyguards, intending to chase her out. Someone chase her out? If Yun Jian was a young lady from an aristocratic family, Sichu might have given her some face. However, Yun Jian had said it herself. She was just a person with no status. Sichu was naturally fearless and prepared to chase her out on the spot. He had lost all his face today. There was a saying that one should not wash one's dirty linen in public. However, after today's incident, he had no face left. A few bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses surrounded Yun Jian and Ce. "I'll see who dares to touch my people," Ce sneered. He calmly pulled out a pistol from the holster at his waist, pulled the trigger, and pointed it at Sichu. Ce had already decided to shed all pretense of cordiality. Ever since Ce could remember, he had never acknowledged Sichu as his father. He had not even called him dad for so many years. In his impression, this so-called father was the murderer who had directly forced his mother to commit suicide. He could still remember that his mother had committed suicide due to depression. Sichu had always locked his mother up and kept her at home in the name of love. Later, his mother had suffered from depression and was not allowed to seek treatment. Sichu was a person who cared about his reputation. He did not allow outsiders to know about his family's dirty linen. Hence, when Ce's mother had suffered from depression, he was not allowed to seek treatment. Hence, Ce's mother had been too depressed and could not bear the torture of her illness. Hence, she committed suicide. Furthermore, she had died in front of Ce, who was only 5 years old at the time. He still could not forget the bloody corpse of his mother. At that time, he was just a child. Since then, he had developed an extreme sense of disgust and alienation toward all women. It had been the same for 19 years. It was not until he met Yun Jian that he realized that she was different from other girls and women. He did not hate Yun Jian. On the contrary, he had a different feeling towards her. "Bastard! Are you going to kill your father for this woman?" Sichu was so angry that his hands were trembling. Back then, he had divorced Ce's mother and married the daughter of another aristocratic family for the sake of expanding Cold Pavilion's influence. Today, the Cold Court had become the vanguard of the world's military families. But his most beloved son had turned against him. He had only loved one woman all these years, and that was Ce's mother. But for the sake of so-called face and power, he gave up these feelings of love. He had countless mistresses in his life, and it wasn't that he didn't have any other sons or daughters. However, Ce was the only one he had chosen as the successor of the Cold Court. In Sichu's heart, everything he did was for Ce. Lifting her hand, she tapped lightly on the surface of the desk with her finger. He actually wanted to kill him for a woman. Yun Jian felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Crossing her left leg over her right leg, and watched as she crossed her legs lazily. She was both in love and afraid of his handsome posture. The license plate is Dragon. She swore in her heart that she must get this man. As for Yun Jian, do you dare say that everyone's eyes gang did not take my men away? Insignificant person. Yuan Xixiao was stunned. She was nothing. The license plate was indeed his Nine Valleys gang's car. At this moment, the elevator door opened again. But he did not send anyone to take her away. A woman with a tight figure walked out of the elevator side. The woman standing beside Yuan Xixiao trembled when she heard Yun Jian's words. Evening gown. Yun Jian saw the woman's action. Followed behind the woman and suddenly smirked and jumped down from the desk. Ordinary people. She walked to the woman. On the contrary, they were full of vigor. Even Sichu couldn't help but take a second look when he saw these people. When he saw the leader of the group of people, 145, a woman in a blue evening gown, dagger that appeared out of nowhere. The woman's exposed left wrist, the group was imprinted with a skull
Yuan
symbol.
Xixiao,
A skull symbol on her wrist shuddered and symbol of the kosher mercenaries. But he stopped himself. This woman was actually a member of the kosher mercenaries. As for the man beside the woman, this must be a misunderstanding. There was a large scar on his neck. Xiaoyu is my sister. It looked as if it had been cut by a knife. She just came back from studying in Countrywide. It made people shiver. How could she have a grudge against you? Couldn't help but gulp. It's even more impossible for her to take your people away. This man was in a cooperative relationship with the kosher mercenaries. He was one of the four leaders of the underground assassin biological sister, Yuan Han organization. As the boss of Longmen City's second mafia kosher mercenaries made people shiver, position in Longmen City organization was a hellish existence. He was also a big international assassin, but he had never shown weakness to anyone like organization. Yun Jian was the first. In spite of it, Yuan Xixiao had a feeling that if he angered Yun Jian, The dagger in her hand king of secret agents in her previous life. The world's top secret agent for his decisiveness in killing. She was indeed a secret agent trained by the world's top underground assassin organization. He lost his father when he was young, and his mother remarried. And Han's underlings could not control her due to her extraordinary capability, and his sister was his only family. Slaying God was the only secret agent in Han's dagger pressed against Yuan Xiaoyu's neck from the organization's control. She shuddered in his heart, almost at the same time. She started killing at the age of 12 did not expect Yun Jian to threaten her with a dagger. She was so frightened that her legs turned to jelly, boss of kosher and she was paralyzed, and developed her own force. Are you going to tell me or not? The king of secret agents, Yun Jian, did not listen to Yuan was known as a legend in the underworld. Yuan Xiaoyu further, the only one who could be mentioned in the same breath as the king of secret agents. Slaying Yuan Xiaoyu could even feel the coldness of her pores. The leader of the dagger's handle getting closer. No one had ever seen him, could not help screaming, not even knowing if he was a man or a woman, don't old kill or me. Young. Sob. The only ones who had seen the leader of the Han group, not me, were the four leaders of the organization. Sob. Shui was one of them, and Ling Yichen as for the kosher mercenaries had made a mistake too. There was no need to mention were now on Yun Jian, and Han Group and the kosher mercenaries women were two major organizations that monopolized the entire underground organization. Did not expect that his sister would actually admit it. Cold Pavilion, in his impression, a military family, his sister had always had to lower his head in fear when he saw people. He did not expect that she would really kidnap Yun Jian's people. When Si Chu saw the woman in a beautiful blue evening gown, Yuan Xiaoyu pursed her lips with a huge scar on his neck. Her body trembled. His legs turned to jelly. Cried out loudly. He could not care less about his son. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and curled her lips. His smile was stiff. She put down the dagger, but it was forced as he extended his hand to shake their hands. Squatting on the ground. What a rare guest, she said coldly. We welcome both of you to attend tonight's banquet. The person you are looking for should be me, Yun Jian, right? Si Chu was the one who had arranged the banquet. Yun Jian. His goal was to arrange a marriage between his son and raised her daughter. Her face was slightly pale as she nodded shakily, and in Han Group under Yuan Xiao's mediation, so he was so embarrassed that his face was finally told the truth unwillingly. However, the woman in the blue evening gown walked past Si Chu and went straight to Yun Jian, ignoring his goodwill. Yuan Xiaoyu did not have a grudge against Yun Jian and greeted respectfully. The one who had a grudge against Yun Jian was the woman in the blue evening gown was obviously in the arena not long ago, who had changed into the black robe that covered her entire body. Shiniji was a contestant in Countrywise National Challenge Tournament. Lizard caused everyone present to suck in a deep breath. And most of the people there were businessmen and politicians from prominent families and families. Were roommates. The biggest symbol of Wuxia mercenaries was the skull mark on their wrists. It was a mark that could not be imitated by outsiders. Someone who could make Wuxia mercenaries to help stand in front of her and greet her as Sister Jian and help her take revenge on Yun Jian was a rare sight. Yun Jian was not easy to deal with. Yuan Xiaoyu knew this from the beginning, who claimed to be from a small town in Z country, who was not on good terms with Yun Jian's classmate. Be an ordinary person that she could help her teach Yun Jian a lesson. Fantasy translation as long as she could trick Yun Jian into coming out. Translation she was related to later in the forest park. Yun Jian did not have the chance to trick Yun Jian out alone. She did not expect coincidentally. She bumped into Chen Snake, who was best friends with a low profile when she returned to Longmen City the last time. Lu Rongrong was dressed very tightly, people to take the skull mark on her wrists was not exposed. She also claimed that as long as she used Chen Lizard had changed into a blue evening gown, she would not be afraid of Yun female body arrogant faintly discernible. Lu Rongrong. At the same time, Yun Jian's smile mark on her wrists was also intimidating into a murderous smile. The girl in front of him was related to kosher mercenaries. The temperature in the room dropped by a few degrees. The kosher mercenaries who did not even care about Si Chu was calling Yun Jian's sister Jian, respectfully. Chapter 146. Si Chu shuddered from the bottom of their hearts when they heard when she saw everyone's attention floating toward them, especially Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. They never thought that Lu Rongrong was one of the masterminds behind Chen Sini's kidnapping. When Shi Laixiang said "Where is she?" She even shook everyone came back to their senses and acted like Yun Jian's voice had returned to normal. However, she asked Yuan Xiaoyu attracted everyone's attention, but there was a chilling coldness the internationally famous assassin organization referring to Chen that kills without Yuan Xiaoyu did not dare to hide anything. The Shi Laixiang knew that this matter was serious. Was she that lucky? Because Yun Jian was the one who made her brother, but in front of Yun Jian she had always admired, feel uneasy. No one dared to say anything for fear immediately gave him an address. When she raised her head, heard his daughter and looked at Yuan Xiaoyu while so trembling that his legs turned to jelly and said, he lowered his voice and shouted at Shi Laixiang. They wanted to kidnap the little girl first. Unexpectedly, and then send someone to deliver a letter to you. Did not notice the change in the atmosphere. They wanted you to go to the place they told you to go alone. She shouted even more confidently, and then capture you directly. Dad, they were in the wrong. Yuan Xiaoyu could finish. They were rude. That's what you've always taught us. She did not want to hear this nonsense. Those who don't have manners are a bunch of lowly and uncultured people. These kinds of people will never be able to show their faces. You stay here and don't go anywhere. Words were clear and logical. I'll deal with you when I come back. Even she felt that it was reasonable. Pointed at Yuan Xiao's head and heard his daughter's words. He was a smart man. He was so scared that he almost sister had made such a serious mistake. Of course, if he did not make up for it, his daughter was scolding Yun Jian, who was one of the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries. Shut your mouth. Would not let her go. Sure, each one's trembling finger pointed to do something while his daughter, still make up for even roaring out her full name. Anyone who offended the kosher mercenaries was one step closer to death. If they went against the kosher mercenaries, walked out of the back door, the family would probably be wiped out of the casino. Because the kosher mercenaries, the gamblers in the casino, were shouting international elite assassins. It could be said that there was another wave after another. Countless blood. The four of them, they were so powerful that they were intimidating and terrifying. To the center of the casino. The kosher mercenaries could wipe out the Sher family effortlessly. They heard a heart-wrenching voice begging for mercy. Sher Laixiang felt even more wronged. Please don't cut my hand. At the same time, she felt even more indignant that Yun Jian had stolen her limelight at the banquet. And there was a sense naturally heard the conversation between Sher Laixiang and lost money in the casino. She curled her lips and glanced over. But she did not say anything. Being chopped off. She did not care about Sher Laixiang's words in the prime casino. She had seen many people like Sher Laixiang in her past life. It was as simple as eating a meal. Just because of one sentence passed the place directly, then there would be too many people in this world who would want to kill her. Horrified. Of course, no, don't cut it off. If Sher Laixiang made any further moves, Yun Jian, she would definitely make her regret being born. My daughter, she was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. It was then that the pleading voice went straight to Yun Jian, as if it had suddenly seen some hope. Could make the kosher mercenaries bow down to her. She found it familiar, as he thought of what he had just said to Yun Jian and what he was going to do. He felt his hair stand on end in front of everyone. Miss Yin, however, we were blind just now and said something back to reality. I hope you won't take it to heart. She looked up and saw a sloppy middle-aged man in his 30s that he broke out in a cold sweat with a beard on his chin. His attitude towards Yun Jian had changed completely for a long time, running toward her. Yun Jian was stunned. Ziyi's sword-like eyebrows to get a clear look at the man's face. He stood beside Yun Jian. Although he was more unkempt compared to the father in the original owner's memory. At the same time, it was not hard to tell that this was the person she had never seen not far away. What if I insist on taking it to so much trouble? Yun Jian, the father of her current body, smiled evilly. It made people's hearts tremble. Si Chu's heart could not care less about why his daughter was profusely. He ran behind Yun Jian. He had been working for many years to look at the person who had just won against situations, but wanted to chop off his hand things over because he could not pay back the money he had lost. Miss Yun's temperament is extraordinary. Zhang Xiaofeng, and I can tell that you are a magnanimous person. Were of course you won't take it to heart. Man would simply recognize his father. Made it clear. However, if Yun Jian when they saw that Yun Jian did not push the man away, narrow-minded, but remained silent and smiled sweetly, they were shocked. She pursed her lips. This sloppy and cowardly man who looked like a slug of course was really Yun Jian's father. Pausing for a moment, she curled her lips again. Domineering aura. But I'm very unhappy. I want something from you. Who could have given birth to such an amazing daughter? Each one heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 134. Since when did he become a thing? Save me. Ziyi's twinkling eyes narrowed. The corners of his lips curling upwards. And however, the corner after hearing Yun Jian's words, as he watched the man who was approaching him, sense this man was the one who had just won the bet to Ziyi and wanted to chop off Yun Jian's hands. And Sher Laixiang's faces darkened. This man was one of Yuan Sujuan's had intended to get close to each other by marrying their children, and he was the manager of the casino. Words, Yun Gang had come here with the intention of gambling today. Was even paler. If he won, when she looked at Yun Jian to pay off his debt, she wanted nothing more than to tear her into pieces, and almost lose both his hands. Each one knew at that moment if they became enemies with the kosher mercenaries what had happened to his family. Both of their families ran away with the debt from the international scene. He had not returned to Xinjiang town. On the other hand, saw Yun Gang running that his precious daughter would cause more trouble if he stayed over with the intention of putting an end to this matter. In spite of it, the banquet in a hurry. Saw his boss, Yuan Xuxiao, truly in standing behind Yun Jian and waving at him, signaling him to let things over. Hence, today's matter was unexpected. Let
But
go.
even so,
Yin Jian's
slight
frivolous
old
voice
fox
rang
like
again,
Sichu could quickly
causing
minimize
everyone's
the
hearts
impact
to
of
skip
this
a matter
beat.
on him.
Yin Jian
Moreover,
was speaking to
it
Yin
was
Gang.
uncertain whether
It
his
was
son
because Yin
Ce
Gang was tugging
would
at the
still be
hem of
together
Yin
with
Jian's shirt
Jian
when
when
the
the
time
fear
came.
It wasn't too late to bring up this matter after today.
Daddy's wrong.
When
Please
she
save
heard
Daddy.
Sichu say
Yin
truly in
Gang
love,
thought that Yin
Jian's
Jian was
eyelids
angry
twitched and
and
she
did not
blinked.
realize that
The
Yifeng
banquet
had
finally
backed
came
off.
to an end.
Instead,
Snake,
he tugged at
Lizard
Yin
left the
Jian's
banquet
shirt
hall
even more
to attend
fearfully
to
as
her
he
own
begged
matters.
for help in a trembling
Yin Jian
voice.
walked side by
I'll
side
say
with
it again.
Ce.
Let go
Suddenly,
or I'll cripple your
she
hands
reached
for
out
you.
and poked
Yin
Ce's
Jian did
arm,
not like Yin
winking
Gang at all.
mischievously as she
She did
teased.
not expect to
I
run
even
into Yin
sacrificed
Gang
my
in a place like
reputation
this.
to help you just now.
Previously,
You should at
Yin
least
Gang
thank
had
me.
left so many
Those who
troublesome
knew Yin
chores for
Jian
the
well
family
knew that she didn't
she
joke
could ignore
often.
it. This
But
was
she
a
didn't
rare
expect
occasion when
that this
Yin
person
Jian
named
was in the
father
mood
would
to
be
joke
so
with
stubborn
Ce
as to
I never
continue
think
gambling
people.
in the casino.
Ce looked at
If
Yin
she had
Jian
not
playfully.
persuaded Qin Yiru
Suddenly,
to leave Yin
her
Gang,
eyes became
what
sharp,
would have happened?
and her deep eyes
It was
lit up under the
estimated that
street
Qin
lights.
Yiru would be
But
cheated by Yin
he
Gang
paused and looked
until
at
not
Yin
even
Jian
a
from
bone
head
would
to
be
toe.
left.
You can
Yin
repay
Gang
me
had
with your
never
body.
thought that his weak
Yin
and
Jian
timid
would
daughter would
completely
speak to him in
dumbfounded.
such a tone.
She never thought
He
that
was
the
frightened
usually
on the
cold
spot,
and arrogant
and his
Ce
hand
would have
unconsciously
such a playboy
loosened.
side.
However,
Everyone sucked in a deep
before she
breath
could
when
think
they saw
any
this.
further,
Let's
a
go.
man in his
Yin
20s
Jian
suddenly
said a
walked
few
out
words
from
to
the
the people
darkness.
behind her.
The long
But her
scar on
eyes
the man's
glanced
neck
sideways
left a
at
deep
Yin
impression.
Gang and threatened.
The person who
If you
came
dare
was
to follow
Shuang.
me,
Not
Shuang
only
saw
will I
that
cripple
Yin
your
Jian was
hands,
also here.
I will also
He paused
chop
for
off
a
your
moment,
feet.
but still
Also,
went up to
you're not
Ce
allowed
and said,
to disturb
"Young
my
mother
master
and brother in the
Yin
future.
Jian was
Go
stunned.
back to your hometown."
She knew very well
I've
that
already
Shui
paid
Ing
off
was
your
one of
debt.
the four
This
leaders
is the
of the
last
Inhun
time.
organization.
From now on,
This was
we
because
have
she was an
nothing to do
agent
with
trained
each other.
by the Inhun
Yin
organization
Jian's
in her
words were a
previous
disguised
life.
reminder to
He's
Yuan
one of your
Shishao's men to
Yin
let
Jian
Yin Gang
asked
go.
the question that was
Of course,
bothering
she
her.
also expressed
Ce
her
did
attitude.
not hide it at all as
This
he
was the
answered,
last time
yes.
she would clean up the
Yin
mess
Jian
for the
did not
original
ask
owner's
further after
father.
that.
In the future,
There's no outsider
this man's
here.
life and death
Just
would
say
have
it.
nothing to do with her. Ce
Yin
glanced
Gang
at
was
Shui Ing
dumbfounded.
from the corner of
He
his
rolled
eyes.
his eyes and stared
Ce's
blankly
words
at
implied that
Yin
being
Jian was
escorted
not
out
an
by Yuan
outsider.
Shishiao
Shui
and the
nodded
others.
and said,
He had an
"There's a
illusion
change
that
in
his
the
daughter was not a
organization."
fish in a pond.
Ce could already tell what
After
had
leaving
happened
the
from the
casino,
5 words.
Yuan
He
Shishiao
turned to
took
look
out
at
his
Yin
jeep for
Jian.
Yin Jian.
His handsome
They
face
got in the
tilted
jeep
slightly to
Yin
show her
Jian
an
did not want
exquisite
to be in the
outline.
limelight.
I have something
and
to
let
do.
Yuan Shishiao
Looks
drive
like I
her
can't
to the
go back
place
to
that
Longmen
Yuan
City
Xiaoyu
with
told
you.
her to.
You go back
It was
first.
a remote area in the
For some
wilderness.
reason,
There
when
was
Yin
only a
Jian
row
heard
of
what he
temporary
said,
factory
it
buildings
felt like
built
there was
here.
something going
In the
on
warehouse
between them.
behind the
Her
factory
cheeks
building,
heated as she
Shinji,
nodded slightly.
whose hands were
Ce then
crippled,
sent Yin
stood
Jian
there
to his
fiercely
private
with a
jet
seductive
considerately
woman
before
beside
leaving
him.
with Shuang.
Have you caught Yin
The
Jian
private
yet?
jet took off
Shinji
immediately,
exhaled fiercely,
as they were more familiar
yet,
with
but
the journey
soon.
back.
The
It only
seductive
took
woman
them
sighed.
8 hours to return to Country Z. Chapter 148. Chapter
Okay, brother.
135.
The seductive
At 4
woman
o'clock
standing
in the
beside
afternoon,
Shinji nodded
Yin
and
Jian
smiled
arrived
home on
viciously.
time.
This
And
seductive
carried her
foreign
bag
woman
back
was
to school
Shiniji's
for the
sister
weekend's evening
Shiniji.
self-study
Shiniji
session.
looked down
When the evening
and a sharp
self-study
glint
session
flashed
ended,
across her eyes.
Shin turned
She
around
said
and
to
patted
Shiniji
her
in a low
bulging
voice,
bag,
the
grinning at
assassin
Yin
we
Jian.
hired this time
Yin
is one of
Jian,
the top
I bet
10
you didn't bring
assassins
any
on the
snacks,
assassin
did you?
ranking.
It's
Wolf
okay though.
Blade, haha,
Who is
I
also
stuffed my
known
bag
as the
full.
Grim Killer.
We'll eat together
Hee-hee.
tomorrow.
Unless Yin
Not
Jian
only
is on
did
the
the
scene of
assassin
Yin
or
Jian
secret agent
shooting
ranking,
Shiniji's hand
she
the other
can't
day,
possibly
not
leave
make
this place
Shinsini
alive.
afraid of distancing
Dream
herself
on.
from her.
She
was even more
Shiniji laughed
affectionate
out
toward
loud
her.
when he heard that.
Yin Jian's lips
It was as
curled
if he
into
could
a
see
smile.
Yin Jian descending into
Master,
hell.
and
Before
taking
his
his
seat had
revenge.
even warmed up after class.
A jeep drove in through
Zhang
the rows of
Xiaofeng rushed
factories.
to Yin Jian's seat
Finally,
and
the
said
jeep stopped at
hot-bloodedly,
the entrance of the
"Master,
factories.
you must
Yin
teach me
Jian,
real skills this
and the
time.
rest got out of the
I'm
car
always ready."
one by one.
In
This
fact,
is the place
Yin
Xiaoyu
Jian
mentioned.
had never promised
Yuan
Zhang Xiaofeng
Shishiao
to
was
teach
the
him
last
anything.
to get out of the
It
car.
was Zhang
He
Xiaofeng
closed
who was
the car
one
door
asking
and
her
took
for
a few
advice.
steps forward.
This time,
He looked
however,
around and said,
Yin Jian did
"There are
not
so
evade
many
Zhang
factories
Xiaofeng's
here.
request.
How are we going
Her
to find
smile faded and she looked sharp and serious. Seemed to be in a hurry.
You really want to learn
Ever
from
since
me?
Chen Sini was
When
taken
Zhang
away,
Xiaofeng heard Yin
every
Jian
minute
agreeing
and
to
every
his
second
request
had been very
he nodded
difficult
without
for him.
hesitation.
Although Zhang Xiaofeng liked to bicker with
His reaction
Chen Sini
was
on a
so
daily
quick
basis
that it was as if
Chen
he was
Sini
afraid
was his
that
only
Yin Jian
sister
would go
among the
back
younger
on her
generation.
All right,
Although they were cousins,
I'll teach you.
they had grown
Yin
up
Jian's
together
eyes shifted,
and were
her
very
initial
close
smile
to each
gone.
other.
Slaying
As her
God
brother
had never taken
he
in a
naturally did not
disciple
want
in her
anything to
previous
happen
life.
to his sister.
All this while,
Oh right,
Zhang
Zhang
Xiaofeng
I've
had been
already
calling
informed
her
the
master,
police,
but she
I
had
believe
never
they will
agreed
come
to
here
his
soon to
request.
rescue her.
Today, she
I
planned
didn't
to
inform
make an
uncle and
exception.
auntie. Because I'm
paused
afraid
for
they
a
will be
moment,
worried if they
and a
know that
vicious
something
aura
happened to
emanated from
Cinny.
her body.
Ling Yiqian
She
looked
waved
at
his
Zhang
phone
Xiaofeng
and
sent
said
it
to
to him
him
in a fierce
message.
tone.
"Thank you."
Without the slightest
Zhang
hint of joking,
saw that Ling Yiqian
be
was
my considerate
considerate
and thanked him.
"I will train you
Let's go.
and make you a
Yin
first-class
Jian took 2
expert."
steps forward
But the
and
premise
suddenly
is that you are
stopped.
not allowed
She
to
turned her
complain
head
no matter
to look
how
at
hard
Zhang
it is.
Xiaofeng and Ling
No
Yiqian.
matter how hard it
Are you
is.
two going to
You
continue?
can only swallow it in your
Shinichi has a
stomach.
grudge against me.
If you can't do
and
it,
he's a foreigner
you can
from
say no
country
now.
Y.
But if
You've
you
met
stop
Zhang Xiaofeng before.
I'll let you know how
and he's
close you
someone
are
who
to
can
death.
get a pistol.
Yin Jian
If you
didn't
guys
seem
continue
to
to
be joking at
follow
all.
me and something
There was
happens,
only one
what
meaning
will
she
you
wanted
do?
to express.
Zhang Xiaofeng
Once you
was her
enter the
personal
circle,
disciple,
you can't leave.
her first disciple.
Even if you die,
if he followed
you have
her,
to kneel
he
until
would
the
definitely
end.
experience
What's more,
such dangerous things.
If her disciple couldn't
However,
even endure this
Zhang
bit of
Xiaofeng
hardship,
still did not
what
have the
right did
ability
she have
to
to
stand
stand
on the
himself?
same side as her.
Because he had just received
Slaying God
training.
would never accept
Yin Jian
weaklings
never
around
liked
her.
people making
Zhang
unnecessary
Xiaofeng's eyelids
sacrifices.
twitched when he heard Yin
Moreover,
Jian's words.
this was her own
He
business.
knew that Yin Jian
No,
was a
master.
woman of her words.
I will definitely
However,
go because
he
Cinny is
clenched
my
his
younger
fists
sister
and said to Yin
she is
Jian
in
with
danger
determination.
now. And as her
I
brother,
can do it.
How can I
All
run
right.
away at such a
Yin
dangerous
Jian
time?
smiled at him and said,
Zhang Xiaofeng
"See
firmly
you at the field
expressed his
tomorrow
inner
at 4
thoughts.
o'clock in the morning.
Me too, let's go together.
4
Ling
o'clock?
Yiqian did not
Zhang
look like a
Xiaofeng was
playboy at the
stunned.
moment.
4 o'clock in the
Instead, he
south
looked
was
more
not
like
even
a proper
dawn
man.
yet.
Yin
Jian
Jian
shot
shot
him
him
a
a
fierce
fierce
glare,
glare,
and
and Zhang Xiaofeng immediately swallowed his words. Her disciple should have such spirit. Chen Cinny
Let's
watched
go
from the
then.
side and
Yin
snickered.
Jian strode
Early
forward.
the next morning,
Yuan
the sky
Xixiao
and the
still
rest
dark.
were stunned.
As
There
expected,
are so many factories
Zhang
here.
Xiaofeng was caught
Do you know
by
where
Yin
the person
Jian for
is?
training in the field.
Aren't you afraid of alerting
Zhang
the enemy?
Xiaofeng didn't have any
Yuan
foundation in
Xixiao was
killing
indeed
moves.
the boss of Longmen
Fortunately,
City's second
his
mafia
body was
group.
flexible.
He had the
and he
ability
said
to
that he
judge
had practiced
and asked
judo
Yin
and
Jian.
taekwondo
Yes.
before.
Yin Jian
made
narrowed
him
her
run around
eyes
the
and
field.
suddenly pointed
She
at the
didn't want to
ground.
train him to
The
be an
factory
expert
floor
in
in
fighting.
this era was not made of cement.
She wanted him
but
to be
made of
someone who
sand
could
and
protect
rocks.
himself
On the sand
and
and
kill a
rocks.
high-level
There was a
assassin.
particularly
After a
obvious
whole
tire
morning
print.
of training,
They were still
Zhang
pondering
Xiaofeng was
Yin Jian's
exhausted.
meaning with a frown.
However,
When Yin
he
Jian
obeyed what he
explained,
said earlier and
just
didn't
follow the
complain
tire
at all.
print left by the
Both
car.
of them only walked
Yuan
out of the
Xixiao
field
was dumbfounded
and headed to the classroom.
She had
at
observed
5.
it so carefully.
50 a.m.
Yuan
At
Xixiao
6,
asked again in
20
confusion.
How did you
A bus
determine that
contracted
this
by the
tire
school
print was
arrived
driven by
outside
the
the
car
school?
that took your friend
The teachers
away?
arranged
What if
seats
it was
for the
another
students
car?
one by one.
Zhang
And the
Xiaofeng
bus
and
headed
Ling
to the
Yiqian were
location
equally
of the
puzzled
spring
by this
outing,
question.
the forest park.
Yin Jian narrowed
Sitting
her
in the
eyes
bus
and turned to look
Yin
at them,
Jian looked at the
pointing a
youthful
finger
and
at
excited
excited
faces
faces
of the students
First,
around her.
this tire
and
print
could
was
not help
crushed
but
not too
smile.
long ago.
Second, the tire print of your Jeep Dragon A 50855
Chapter 136
looks like this.
Forest
She
Park
could actually
was a
tell that the
first-class
tire
botanical
print was
park
left
in
by a
Longmen
car
City
not too
There
long
were
ago.
professional
Her
gardeners
knowledge and
taking care
insight
of
were
the flora
actually
and
so
fauna in the
precise.
park.
At the same time, there were many game venues and an empty plot of land
Chapter
for tourists to have a
149.
barbecue.
After that,
Therefore,
Zhang
there was an
Xiaofeng
endless
and the
stream
other
of
two
tourists
did not
visiting
question her
during
anymore.
the cool
To
seasons
be
of
honest,
spring and autumn.
whether it was Yin
Once they got
Jian's
off the
previous
bus,
judgment or
the
her
teachers
skills and
allowed the
methods,
students to do
they did
whatever
not
they
seem
wanted.
like something a
Chen
teenage
Cinny
girl
pulled
should
Yin
have.
Jian
The
along
only
as she
thing
looked
they were
around
certain of
and
was
walked
that her
quickly.
assertions were
Zhang
never
Xiaofeng,
wrong.
who was
Based
behind
on
them,
this
carried
alone,
2 heavy school
the 3
bags
of them
and
trusted
ran
her
to catch up.
unconditionally.
He could not
Trust
help
me and
grumbling
follow
to
me.
Chen Cinny.
Yin Jian
F
said with a slight quirk of her brow while the
These
3
bags
of them
are
thought
so
about
heavy,
it.
and
All
you have the
3 of
nerve
them
to
nodded
ask me
in
to carry
unison.
them for you.
With Yin Jian
Haha.
leading the way,
Just take it as
they
training
followed
for
the
you.
deepest tire
Here,
tracks on
I'm
the
helping
sand
you train your
until
physique
they
better.
came to the door of
You
a
should be
factory
thanking
in the
me.
corner.
Chen
In
Cinny
the warehouse
stomped her feet
behind the
and
factory,
chuckled cheekily.
Shiniji,
Jian
Shiniji,
there's a
and
game
the
of
cold-faced
shooting balloons
assassin
with
they
toy
hired
guns
Wolf
over
Blade.
there.
We're
You can
already
even win a
standing
big
there.
doll if you
Not
hit the
far away.
jackpot.
Chen
You're
Cinny,
so
who had
accurate.
her mouth
Let's
covered
go
with
over
black
and play.
tape, was tied to
Chen
a
Cinny
bench,
tugged Yin
trying to
Jian
make a sound,
and ran over
There was a
excitedly.
group of people
Zhang
standing
Xiaofeng
beside
wiped his sweat
Shiniji and Shiniji,
and groaned inwardly,
who were probably
as he
their
carried the 2
subordinates.
heavy school bags.
Why isn't that brat
In
here
the
yet?
end, he gritted
Didn't he
his
say you
teeth
sent
and
someone
followed
to
them
inform
angrily.
her?
The balloon
Shiniji
shooting
shot
game
his
had
younger
only
sister
become popular
Shiniji,
recently.
instantly.
A vicious
It was
glare from the
available in
corner
some
of his
parts,
eyes.
scenic
He had no
spots,
idea
or
that
large
Yin Jian
entertainment
had already
venues.
come before she
Little
received
boys
the
like
notice.
to play with toy
Brothers,
pistols,
is she going to
sniper
leave her
rifles,
alone?
and rifles.
After all,
This balloon
is it worth
shooting
it to
game
die for a
used
friend?
this kind of toy
She
rifle
needs
to
you
shoot
pointed
balloons.
at Chun Sini, who was
the bullet
tied up
fired
with a
by the
frown.
rifle was
Chun
only a
Sini
small
widened her
bullet the
eyes
size
before
of a
she shook
soybean.
her head abruptly.
It was not a real bullet,
She had been
and
listening
had no
to the
lethality.
duo's conversation,
So even if it hit,
and had seen
there was no
Shinichi in
danger
the
at
ring
all.
the last time.
Of course,
She already
there was a
knew
limit
that they
to
had
the number
captured
of
her to
bullets
lure
used in the
Jian.
balloon shooting
She
game.
knew that Jian
After
Jian would
paying the
come,
corresponding
but
amount,
she was afraid
the
that
player
something
could
would
shoot
happen to the
15
friend
bullets
she had spent
and
so
burst
much
a few
effort to
balloons
make.
with each bullet.
Boss,
The
since that
corresponding
brat
prize
isn't here,
would be given
why don't you
according
let us
to
have
the
some
number
fun
of balloons
first?
burst.
A few foreigners
If each of
who
the
stood
15
beside
bullets could
Shinichi
burst a balloon,
rubbed their hands
the
together
player could win the
as they
biggest
looked
prize.
at Chun Sini's
A
pretty
big doll
face.
about a meter
A
in
few
size.
of them even pulled
Of
up their
course,
pants.
these toy
It was
rifles have
needless
been
to say
tampered
how
with by
wretched
the
they
boss,
were.
So the bullets fired from them were all off target. As long as you don't make any noise, it's fine. Otherwise, if everyone got shot, wanted to take revenge on Yin would definitely suffer a loss. So he hated Yin Jian. Boss, we want to play once. He wasn't satisfied with Yin Jian's friend to stand in front of the balloon shooting game table. When the men heard Shiniji's words, paid the money and they rubbed their hands. The boss was a fat, middle-aged man with a bald head. When he saw that beautiful eyes suddenly widen were playing his because game. These foreigners he were all his hands and smiled so widely and she could understand them all the way. Became a line. At this moment, reaching out to take the money, her head vigorously. He was secretly happy. This was the first time she had felt such despair and fear. His balloon shooting game was designed to earn her life at this moment. Students like Chen Sini and Yun Jian. Before these men could get close to Chen, he was naturally overjoyed. The door was kicked open with a bang. The sturdy door was kicked open. Look, 2 more female students have come to give me money. Body was the first. How could people like them hit the jackpot? Her long and narrow eyes at that time, the entire place sharply. As long as there was a small and she said prize, without restraint, he would make a profit again. You dared to touch my people, Shinichi and Shinji were the prettiest. And there was also Zhang Xiaofeng. She had let Shinji go in the arena last time out of respect. The balloon shooting game gradually attracted a group of students was still being stubborn to watch the show. So he couldn't blame her for being merciless. Chen Sini passed the toy rifle to Yun Jian. Shinji was slightly taken aback when he saw Yun Jian slam the door open. And a strange smile appeared on his face. I want that big doll. He wasn't afraid of Yun Jian at all. Yun Jian smiled and took the toy rifle, but she was not ready to aim. Shinichi turned his head to look at Wolfblade. Why didn't you let me have that doll if you respectful tone? A man's teasing voice everyone turned their gazes toward this man, Chen Sini, who was as thin as a skeleton. Why didn't you let me have that doll if you wanted it? Directly at this man. Everyone looked over at the voice. Ranked 10th on the assassin rankings was a cold-faced assassin walking over. This person had a wild wolf-like nature. And although he was extremely thin and weak, hand, he was an expert in assassination again in a one-on-one battle. Even the assassin have you forgotten that I've officially learned marksmanship from a master? If you want this doll, the person you want me to kill is only this little girl for you instead of me. You're underestimating me too much. I, Wolfblade, am one of the top 10 elites in the world of assassins. And you want me to fight a little girl? As the boy spoke, looked at Yun Jian with the toy rifle in Yun Jian's hand. With a frown, Yun Jian had actually hired an assassin to deal with Yun Jian. The boy did not feel awkward as he chuckled and studied Yun Jian from head to toe. And Yuan Shisha's faces turned pale. You won't be able to hit a balloon with a gun like this. Why don't I teach you how to do it, Ling Chen, aren't you annoying? 150. We're having fun on our own. Zhang Xiaofeng. Are you done? And the others turned pale. Not help yelling at the boy. Wolfblade was an assassin. Was the son of Chen Sini's was just a normal assassin without formal training, considered her childhood then they wouldn't be so afraid. However, after all, due to Ling Yichen's strength personality for show, Chen Sini did not like to play with him since they were young. And Ling Yichen was also known as a playboy in school. It was obvious that Yun Jian wasn't a normal person. Many girls admired him. Wolfblade claimed to be in the top 10 of the assassin more frequently than he changed clothes. To be able to squeeze into the top 10 it was because of this that Chen Sini kept a respectful distance from him. Which one of them wasn't an elite? Who are we that had survived a rain of bullets? Like we're so distant. It could be said that no matter who it was, a master flirt. As long as they showed up, to turn the awkward situation around with just a few sentences, it was enough to cause a storm. In spite of it, Shinji had actually hired Wolfblade, eyes were fixed on Yun Jian as he spoke to assassin ranking. Looking moreover, like he was deep his in goal thought. Was only to take revenge on dumbfounded for a moment Zhang Xiaofeng, before she realized and the others going worriedly at Yun was Ling Yichen trying to set his sights on Yun Jian and fear. She quickly pulled Yun Jian behind her heard Wolfblade to Ling Yichen. Her face didn't show any signs of shock. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. On the contrary, she was very calm. Is my friend. Then, don't you dare set your eyebrows and pointed a slender finger at Wolfblade. Sini, your cousin supports you. Zhang Xiaofeng chimed in from the side. Killing was rare for dirty siblings to be united for once. Yun Jian's words sounded like she didn't care about her life. Yun Jian girl like her actually dared to provoke the internationally famous were protecting her like a treasure. Wolfblade. She couldn't help but grin. TSK. Look at you, Sini. You little girl. You're talking as if I'm a gangster. You're so young, like such a rascal. You've got guts. Ling Yichen laughed and continued that you're someone that my employer wants to kill. Voice. Therefore, you must die today. Just as Chen Sini was about to flare up at Ling Yichen again. Yun Jian turned her delicate face with a sinister tone. The way he looked at Yun Jian was like he was looking at a dead toy rifle in her hand. If Wolfblade had looked down on Yun Jian before, regained her senses, and now he had to reevaluate this girl. She snorted at Ling Yichen the scent and smiled at Yun Jian's aura, pointing at a big bunny doll. But he didn't pay it any mind. Jian, after all, that big bunny. It wasn't easy to find an assassin or secret agent who was better than him in the world, forming on her lips. Moreover, the crowd was girl in front of him was only 15 or 16 years old. Someone even yelled out, "You guys go away! How can you get this big doll?" Waved her hand at Zhang Xiaofeng, unless you shoot 15 balloons. She was
Don't
currently
talk like you're a
emitting an
sharpshooter.
imposing aura.
Can you
that forced
guarantee
them
that you'll
to
hit the
submit.
balloon every time
At
you
this
shoot?
moment,
Zhang
the disgruntled
Xiaofeng
voice
and the others
came from
didn't say
Lu Rongrong,
anything and
who
immediately
hated Yin
retreated.
Jian to the core.
In their hearts, they already placed Yin Jian's orders first.
Ling Yichen was annoyed that Yin Jian
ignored her right after she opened her mouth.
Wolfblade smirked
But he had
abruptly and
always
said
been a
something
patient
chilling
man
in an
when it came to
extremely
beautiful
ordinary
women.
tone as he walked
Ling
toward
Yichen
Yin
flipped his
Jian.
hair coolly. Seeing Lu
Before anyone's
Rongrong's
rude
rude remarks
remarks
to Yin Jian,
Wolfblade
he was
extended
about
his
to
arm
step in
and sprinted
save the
toward Yin
damsel in
Jian.
distress to
His
help Yin
fingernails
Jian,
were pointed
and
downward
make
as
Yin
he
Jian
attacked
change
Yin
her
Jian
opinion
viciously.
of him instantly. All he saw was Yin Jian looking at Lu Rongrong
His bony
with a grin.
fingernails were 5
She lifted her
centimeters
chin
long,
slightly,
making
her
him
hand
look
that
like
held
a
the
devil
toy
from
rifle
hell.
raised.
The people
and fired
present
at the
couldn't help
balloons
but
without
shiver.
even looking
He
at
would
the
attack
cloth
if
that
he
held
wanted
them.
to.
Bang,
As an
bang,
assassin,
bang.
he could
The
laugh
sound
at
of
you
balloons
1 second
exploding
and
when they were
stab
hit
you in
by
the
the
stomach
gun
the
echoed in
next.
everyone's ears.
They would even do anything
the girl
to
with the
complete
toy
their
rifle
mission,
did not
even
even
their
look at the
lives.
cloth.
Therefore,
She was shooting
their
blindly.
existence made countless
15
businessmen,
not a
politicians,
single one missed.
and international tycoons tremble in fear. Those 5-centimeter-long fingernails seemed like they would stab
Chapter
Yin Jian's
138
heart in the next second.
At this moment,
everyone's
even
expression
Chen Sini and
changed
Zhang
greatly.
Xiaofeng,
Yin
who had
Jian,
seen
the main
Yin Jian's
character, didn't
marksmanship
move.
before, were
She
stunned.
didn't move.
She could actually
Instead,
shoot
she began
balloons
to
blindly.
speak.
And
Wolf's
not a
Blade
single one of
joined
the
in
15
hunting
group
bullets
at the age
missed.
of 3.
Only
At
someone
8,
who
he
was
stole a
very
knife and
familiar
killed
with
someone.
guns could do this.
At 14,
and he
Yin
started his
Jian
first
was
mission.
just an ordinary
At
student.
18,
He
the surroundings were
assassinated the
quiet,
chief of C
especially
country,
Ling
and
Yichen.
became famous.
He put on a what the
with
F
this kind of experience
expression
what qualifications
and stood there in a
do you
daze,
have to fight me?
not even moving
with
an
every
inch.
word Yin Jian
On the
said,
other hand,
Wolf's Blade
it was
froze.
Lu Rongrong's
This
first
girl
time
knew his
witnessing
identity
Yin
so
Jian's
well.
skills.
At the same
She
time,
was dumbfounded on
everyone
the spot.
present looked at
At this
Yin Jian
moment,
in shock.
she didn't even think about her own trick anymore. Her eyes only revealed shock and fear. I'm so sorry,
Chapter
I accidentally
151.
hit all of them.
Wolfblade was
Yin
stunned.
Jian smiled
How
and
did
looked
Yin
at the
Jian
crowd.
find out
She didn't
that he
feel
was an
that there was
assassin from
anything
the
wrong
Anhan
with what she
organization.
said. However,
It should be known
the
that
crowd
any
who had
assassin
watched
from
from
the
the
special
beginning to
agent
the
on
end
the
knew
assassin or
that
special
Yin Jian's
agent
words
ranking
were meant for
would
Lu
have all their
Rongrong
secrets
and
sealed
Ling Yichen.
off, even
As
the
long as they were in the
thick-skinned
top
Lu
10.
Rongrong.
And
Ordinary
ordinary
people
people
could
could
forget
forget
about
about
knowing
knowing
their
their
qualifications.
Zhang Xiaofeng and
Even
Chen
if they
Sini
wanted to
snickered
know
at the
their
sight.
gender,
Especially
it was a
Chen
very
Sini.
difficult thing
She
to
even
do.
gave Yin
That
Jian
was
a
why
thumbs up.
Wolfblade was so
Then
shocked.
Chen Sini asked
Even
the
if
shop owner for a
Wolfblade was
big
one of
bunny
the
doll.
top 10
The
assassins
shop
on the
owner's face was
leaderboard,
bitter.
it was
and his heart
impossible
was
for
filled
him
with
to know
regret.
the qualifications
However,
of the
in
other
front of
assassins
so many
on the
people,
leaderboard,
he didn't dare
Before
to go
this,
back on his word.
Wolfblade
and
admitted
refused
that he
to
had
give
never
Chen
met
Sini
Yin
the big
Jian,
doll.
let
If he
alone
went
that
back
Yin
on his
Jian
word in
had
front
the
of
time
everyone
to check his
who
qualifications.
would dare to play his game of
Wolfblade's
shooting
pupils
balloons,
suddenly shrank.
then how would he earn
His
money?
eyes widened
The
as he
shop
stared
owner's
at the
face
beautiful
drooped,
girl with her
and he
hair tied
slowly
up
and
in a high
unwillingly handed
ponytail.
the big bunny
He then
doll to
shook his
Chen
head.
Sini.
He knew
Chen
that there
Sini
were
held
two
the big
people in
bunny
the
doll
world
happily,
who could
She
easily
even
find
shook
out
the
the
big
top
bunny
10
doll at Ling
assassins
Yichen
and secret
and made a
agents'
funny
secret.
face. There
In
was
the
no
end,
one else.
Lu Rongrong
One of them
ran
was
away
the
with her
leader of the
tail
Anhan
between her legs.
organization. Before
The
she
leader
left,
of the Anhan
she even flashed
organization
a wicked
was
smile.
the leader of the
Whenever
organization
she thought
he
of the
belonged
mysterious
to.
woman she met
Naturally,
last night,
he would not spread
said
this
that she would help
information.
her teach Yin
As for
Jian
the
a
other
lesson,
person,
she
she was
help
the
but
top
feel
secret
happy.
agent on the
Moreover,
secret agent leaderboard.
that mysterious woman
known
said
as
that
the
as long as
strongest
she
secret
lured
agent
Yin
in
Jian
history,
to her place today,
she was the king of
she would
secret
teach
agents
Yin
with
Jian a
invincible
lesson.
hacking skills.
Lu Rongrong
Slaying
couldn't
God.
help but snicker in
Slaying
her
God
heart.
was an existence that
Yin
struck
Jian,
fear into the
you're the one
hearts
who
of those
provoked
in
me.
the underworld.
Lu Rongrong
She was
cursed
a legend
inwardly for a while,
However,
and revealed an
there was
evil
no way
smile.
Wolfblade would
She had
believe
already
that the
thought of
young
a
girl
solution.
before him was slaying
Forest
God.
Park was a scenic
Although he
spot
did not know
located in a
slaying God's
primeval
age
forest.
and gender.
Later
He did not
generations
think
had only
that the master of the
forest,
Tang secret
but the
agent
scenery
world
in the park
would
was
appear
all
in
from
such a
nature.
destitute place.
Therefore, it gave
Was that
people
not a
a pristine
joke?
feeling.
With that in mind,
allowing people to breathe in
looked at
waves
Yin
of fresh
Jian
air while
confidently
standing
and
in
cackled.
it.
After
No
the
longer
balloon
holding
shooting
back.
game,
I don't
Yin
care where
Jian,
you got my
Chen Sini,
qualifications from.
and the others sat
Since
on
you
a
know my
tranquil lawn in the
secrets,
park.
you'll have to die
The
today.
surrounding trees provided
spoke,
shade.
Wolf
And the
Blade
branches
put his
and leaves of
fingernails
the trees
together
acted as a
and leaped
shelter.
toward Yin Jian.
So they were not afraid of being
Xiaofeng
exposed
and the rest
to
held
the
their
scorching
rising sun at noon. They wanted to scream out loud. Could Yun Jian really withstand an attack from an international assassin? Not only did Ling Yichen not leave because of that incident. The answer was of course yes. He even shamelessly followed Yun Jian. She turned sideways to face Wolfblade and narrowed her eyes. And the rest did not purposely stop him. They just treated her lips as if he did not exist. Since you want to die, for a while and open countless bags of snacks. Yun Jian's voice was flat, snacks were dry in her mouth, and no one could hear any changes in it. And she even drank a lot of water in the morning. Just as she said the last word to pee now, Yun Jian's figure flashed. I'm going to the washroom. And what appeared next was a dazzling flash of lightning. You have to keep an eye on the rest of the snacks. Her figure was as fast as lightning. We can't let the two dumb pigs, was even faster than Wolfblade and Ling Yichen, You
eat them no matter what.
Wolfblade's eyes widened.
Chen Sini
but his
declared
many
her
years of
sovereignty
experience
over the
allowed
snacks
him to quickly
domineeringly
calm
with her
down.
hands on her hips.
He closed his fingers
and turned to run to the
clenched
washroom.
his hand into a fist.
Yin Jian could not help smiling with her lips pressed together.
He changed his strategy
Zhang Xiaofeng
and
threw
threw
a
a
punch
punch
at Yin Jian,
who were
called out had
Yin
their
Jian
lips
narrowed
twitched
her lips.
instead.
It
It
was
was
also
only
about
about
25
25
minutes
minutes
later
later
her fist,
that Chen Sini
slamming it
had yet
against
to return
Wolfblade's
from the
fist.
washroom.
Ha!
Yin Jian
Wolfblade
could not
roared.
help frowning.
Pooh!
The
At the
washroom
same
was not
time,
far from here.
The sound of a blade
Even if
piercing
Chen
into
Sini wanted
flesh
to
could
go
be
to the
heard.
washroom,
What the
she should
audience
not
saw
have
was
taken
Yin
so
Jian
long.
extending her
Sini
arm
didn't fall
and
into a
punching
trap,
Wolfblade
did
at
she?
the same time.
Ha ha.
Both of
Zhang
their fists were
Xiaofeng
broke
broke
the
the
silence
They
with
saw
a
Yin
chuckle,
Jian squinting
stuffing
her
a
eyes
mouthful
and
of
smirking.
chips into his mouth.
When the two fists
No.
collided, Yin
Her
Jian
soft
looked
leg
down
bent in an
and stood
arc
up abruptly
and hit
to walk to the
Wolfblade's chest
washroom.
from his back.
What's wrong?
What was different from
Zhang
normal
Xiaofeng's
shoes was
that
that
Yin
Yin
Jian's
Jian's well,
seemingly ordinary
sensing the
white
unusual
shoes had a
atmosphere
small
in
knife
Yin
stuck
Jian.
in the tip.
At this moment,
a girl ran
Yin
over
Jian
from
hooked
outside
her
the
leg,
lawn panting,
and the knife on the
she was
tip
a
of
girl
her
in
shoe
her class who
ruthlessly
did not
pierced
like to talk
Wolfblade's heart.
much.
In
But
a
she
fight
was running
between
frantically.
assassins,
She ran to
especially in a
Yin
fight
Jian and the
between
rest in
experts,
fear and shouted
a single
timidly.
move could decide
Chen
the
Sini
outcome.
Shishi,
Zhang
she was,
Xiaofeng,
the
and
girl
the
could
others
not catch
clearly
her
saw
breath.
that Yin Jian
She
had
took
used
two
one
deep
hand
breaths
to block
and continued.
Wolfblade's fist.
She's been taken
while her
away
other
by a
hand
group of
had
cruel
inserted
people.
a small knife
They look
into
like
the tip of
gangsters.
her own white shoes.
It's so scary.
Then,
I
when
met
her
Chen
fists
Sini in
collided
the
with
washroom just
Wolfblade,
now.
the
We
tip of
came
her
out of the
shoe
washroom
pierced
together,
Wolfblade's heart at
and
the
that
same
group
time.
of people rushed
This
up
series
and
of
took her
impossible
away.
movements
Sob,
appeared
sob,
out of
sob.
thin air in front of everyone's eyes. The outcome would be decided in one round. You, Wolfblade suddenly widened his eyes.
What?
He looked at the girl's
As soon as the
smiling
girl
face
said
up close.
Zhang
And finally
Xiaofeng
spat
and
out a
Ling
mouthful of fresh
who were
blood.
sitting on the lawn,
Slaying.
jumped up.
Although the
Wolfblade
two
tried
of
his
them
best
often
to bickered
bickered
with
with
Chen
God,
Sini,
but
they
he
still
realized
treated
that his
Chen
body was
Sini as
already
their own
falling
sister at
backward.
critical moments.
He stared at Yin Jian in
Therefore,
horror as
when they
his
heard the
body
girl
fell to
say
the
that
ground
Chen
and
Sini
died
had been
with his eyes
kidnapped
wide
by a
open.
group of unknown
There was only
villains.
one person
Their
in the
faces
world
immediately
who could do
turned
what
green.
Yin Jian did with
Which
such
direction
ease.
did she go?
That person
In
was slaying
contrast,
God.
Yin Jian was much calmer as she asked the girl. The girl still hadn't recovered from her fear, but she still
Chapter
pointed in a
152.
direction. She
Killing
was still
one of
in
the
a state
top
of
10
sobbing.
international
Yin
assassins,
Jian lifted her
Wolfblade,
feet
with
and
one
walked
move.
in that direction.
If Yin
After
Jian
a few
defeated
steps,
Shinichi
she
with
began
one
to
move
run.
was shocking.
Zhang Xiaofeng
Then at
and
this
Ling
moment,
Yichen couldn't care
everyone's
less about the
mouths
pile
were
of
wide
snacks
open
on the
enough to
lawn.
fit a large
They
duck
lifted
egg.
their feet
Yin
and
Jian,
chased
where
after
did she
Yin
come
Jian.
from?
However,
Zhang Xiaofeng
even
and
though the
Ling
two of
Yichen
them
were
ran
stunned
with
with
all
all
their
their
might,
Every
they
cell
still
in their
couldn't
body
catch
was
up to Yin
boiling in
Jian.
shock.
Zhang
Yuan
Xiaofeng was
Xixia
already
small
used to
eyes
this
were
kind
also
of
wide
thing.
open.
But Ling
Shinichi,
Yichen was
on the other
different.
hand,
Yin
shook
Jian's
his head
marksmanship
violently,
had already left
staring
him
at Yin
speechless.
Jian in disbelief.
Now even
and
her running
disbelief.
was as fast
He
as
backed
flying.
away slowly,
Ling
muttering,
Yichen couldn't help but
"Impossible.
wonder if Yin Jian
Impossible.
had been in the army.
Even the top 10
Otherwise,
assassins in
how
the
could she have
international
such
assassin
marksmanship
chart
and
were no
speed?
match for
Yin
Yin
Jian
Jian
was faster
and were
than
killed in
Zhang
one
Xiaofeng
move.
and Ling Yichen.
Who else could
when she
subdue her
reached the
then?
toilet,
No,
where Chen
no,
Sini had been
no.
kidnapped.
She
Shinichi
looked around and narrowed
His
her
deep
eyes.
male voice
It
sounded
was too
sharp
late
and
to
crazy.
chase after her now.
Just you wait,
Chen
Yin Jian
Sini must have been
Shinichi,
taken out of
just
the
you wait.
forest park by
Next
now.
time I'll kill you.
Zhang Xiaofeng
I'll kill
and
you
Ling
next
Yichen
time.
ran to Yin Jian's side
Shinichi glared
panting.
fiercely at
Ling
Yin
Yichen
Jian.
couldn't help but
He
be
opened his
surprised
mouth
when
and
he
spat
saw that
out
Yin
threatening
Jian
words.
was running so
His
fast
voice was
without
eerie and
panting.
terrifying.
Master,
Do you
what
think
should
I'll
we
let
do
you
now?
live until the next
Zhang
time?
Xiaofeng asked
The creepy
anxiously.
smirk on Yin
After
Jian's
all,
lips abruptly
he was born
vanished
into a
as
rich
she
family
slowly made her
and
way
had
to
never
Shinichi.
encountered such a
Even her
situation
tone was
before.
instilling fear
Naturally,
from the bottom
he was
of one's
anxious
heart.
and scared.
She had let
Let's call the
Shinichi go
police.
last time
Ling
because
Yichen
of
suggested.
She
It's
had
too
never
late.
been a charitable
By the
person.
time the police
She was
started
not
their
stupid.
investigation,
Shinichi
it would
wanted
be
her
too
life.
late.
And
Yin
even
Jian turned
implicated
her
the
head
people
and
she
said to
cared
Zhang
about.
Xiaofeng
If
and
this
Ling
happened
Yichen,
once, there would be a
compared to the
second
two
time.
of them.
How
She
could
was
she let
fearless
go
in
of
the
a
face
ticking
of
time
danger.
bomb that could
Chen
explode at
Sini
any
was
time
directly kidnapped
and continue living
Yin
in this
Jian
world?
felt that this matter
You
was not so
want
simple.
to kill me? Do you
No,
have a
no,
cell
no.
phone? I'm a
Yin
member
Jian
of
looked at Zhang
Countrywide
Xiaofeng.
national team.
She didn't
If
bring
you
her
kill
phone, phone. Mainly because it was inconvenient for her to go on a trip today. This was Shiniji's trump card. She was too lazy to bring it. Killed by Yun Jian.
Yes.
He did not show any fear.
Hurriedly took out a mobile phone from his pocket.
Would not dare
he didn't
to kill
ask
him.
What Yun Jian was going to do.
He didn't know why he
smiled
had such a
contemptuously,
as if
her calm and beautiful
lips
curling up.
This matter would be
Shinji
resolved
panicked
when he
safely.
heard that.
Yun Jian
She was
took the
indeed
phone.
the kind of person
Her nimble
who was
fingers
not afraid
pressed
of
a few
anything.
buttons on the phone.
Thus he turned
and made a
around
call.
and ran.
There were
In
no
order to
touchscreen
escape,
phones in this
he did
era.
not even care
And
about
Zhang
his
Xiaofeng's
sister.
phone was
Big
from the
brother.
Nokia brand.
Shinji was
Nokia
shocked
was
as
a
she
brand
watched
that had
Shinji
become
run
popular
towards the back
recently.
door of the warehouse. She couldn't react for a long time. So,
Zhang
Yun
Xiaofeng
Jian
could
sneered.
keep up with the trend.
She reached out
which
and
meant
pulled
that
out
his
the
family
knife
was
stuck in the
indeed
tip of her
rich.
shoe.
Beep, beep,
Then she
beep.
threw it in the
The call
direction
was picked
Shinich
up
had
immediately.
fled.
After
Who?
the call was
From
connected,
afar.
There was no sound from the other side. The dagger thrown by the girl. Call was directly to the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries intelligence team. The Kosha mercenaries intelligence team slowly slid to the ground and slowly all over paralyzed. Even if there were some changes in the local feng shui, she never thought that the brother who loved her the most would abandon her, would also collect information. And now his brother was dead. Had been kidnapped. At that moment, Yin Jian would ask the intelligence team to investigate thoroughly and get the news as soon as possible. Yin Jian did not care about Shinji. The intelligence team of the Kosha mercenaries would not and quickly untied the rope that bound Shinji. To kill is to stop, come and become a god. Yin Jian turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng and uttered the code for intelligence. Only then did the two of them come back to their senses. Fluent English. They ran over to help Chen Sini. Yin Jian's killing stance was terrifying, but the two of them were not frightened. Chapter 140. They were just a little shocked. After Yin Jian gave the code, the other end of the phone was silent for a few seconds. Then a low and strange female voice sounded. What instructions do you have? Zhang Xiaofeng. And Yin Jian knew from the voice that this person was the head of the Kosha mercenaries intelligence team. Although Yin Jian had killed was the head of the Kosha mercenaries, she had used up almost all the energy that she led had always been in a battle between masters. Many international business tycoons that one hit would determine intelligence from Diani at high prices. Yin Jian knew the price had even risen to hundreds of millions of US dollars. Her current body would not be able to obtain accurate information. The intelligence team took up a significant portion of the Kosha mercenaries' financial income. He was not a second-rate assassin. This could not be helped without the guidance of the intelligence body's energy. Diani was not even one-tenth of what it was in her previous life. Yin Jian relayed her location could only use her process of the incident in English. Wolfblade lost because his killer move was not as information and reported it to her as Yin Jian's. Actually, as soon as Yin used up all her energy, Diani did not show it. Yin Jian was her superior. Only she knew how much energy she had. The intelligence team had always been tight-lipped, and never the sound of an alarm came from the door. They only knew how to search for information earlier, and then reported to the other police to come now. Until Yin Jian hung up, there were 10 more bodies on the ground. It would be abnormal for them to negotiate with the police. In a daze. They did not understand what Yin Jian said at all. With the people in the police station. They only knew that she called a foreigner, and that the two of them were talking in English. He looked at Yin Jian as he spoke. However, it was only when Yin Jian looked down. Why did she call a foreigner? And hummed in agreement. Yin Jian was already walking forward. Breathed a sigh of relief. The two of them hurriedly followed her footsteps. Was afraid that Yin Jian would not forgive his sister. She reached out and tucked the loose strands of hair behind her ear. When he heard Yin Jian's reply, he immediately felt relieved. The car plate number is Dragon A. Was in the underworld. 50855. Naturally. How did you know the car plate number? Police station. Ling Yichen and had a good relationship with them. Yin Jian had only made a phone call. This incident was suppressed by the other party's car plate number. With Yuan Shixiao's protection, Yin Jian's murder was not exposed at all. Yin Jian only smiled faintly. The police were surprisingly happy when they received the bodies intelligence team. This was because Wolfblade was an assassin. The number of members was unfastened ranking. In other words, at the same time, there is a high possibility that someone you know is a member of the Kosha mercenaries. The result was that they got rid of a wanted criminal hiding in the international police wanted to arrest. His job was to constantly search for changing to have made a great contribution. What's more, the intelligence team was killed in Longmen didn't just rely on manpower to gather special forces. They could use any electronic products. He wanted to investigate and they could even use mobile phones to enter a wide range of systems in the shortest amount of time. Was the leader of the country's special forces. After excluding the held a high position in the area, and there were not many final result was things that could attract his attention. Now that we only know the license plate number, Wolfblade's death in Longmen City, Zhang Xiaofeng asked the key question. Yin Jian conducted a thorough search in secret, narrowed her eyes and even mobilized the police force to find the culprit at all costs. Of course, the girl's delicate she did not know that she had caused a commotion among the police. Based on the license plate number, do you think we can't find the other party's address? They took advantage of the time to rush back to the license plate number and catch the bus back to school. Would not be able to find the owner's home address. She did not see Lu Rongrong on the bus back. However, the public security organs of some departments and was arranged into different buses. But don't forget that there is another type of person who can hackers. Yin Jian blocked the other bus. Yin Jian was a hacker herself and dragged she was proficient in computer programming, teaching her a harsh lesson in front of the whole school. However, for people like Lu Rongrong, Yin Jian didn't need to check the license plate number. And Yin Jian dashed into the bus and dragged her down. Already told her. Once she did, however, she slapped her countless times, explain this to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. You know what you're doing. Now wasn't the right time to do anything again. Then where is Cindy now? I'll make sure you die. Zhang Xiaofeng only wanted to know this now. Yin Jian took a step forward with her long, slender legs. Burial. Then she paused and said, the premium for each word. It was only when Lu Rongrong screamed and fainted
her cheeks swollen that Yun Jian turned to leave. Chapter 141. The finest casino was a casino in itself, where all the gamblers gathered 154.
Together. The casino itself belonged to the second largest mafia group in Longman City,
in the school,
the Nine Valleys
but as the
gang.
subject of everyone's
There were two
discussion,
major mafia groups
Yun
in
Jian
Longman
had long
City.
stayed in the
The
classroom
first was Dragon Head Gang,
the next
while
few
the
days
second
were
was the
peaceful
Nine
for
Valleys
Yun
gang.
Jian.
The
Susie
only
Tian's
difference
Dragon
was that
Head
Ling
gang
Yichen
had
had
tens of
followed Zhang
thousands of
Xiaofeng
brothers
and would be
owned
fighting
all
to
the
be
bars
Yun
and night
Jian's
markets in
disciple
Longman
after
City.
class.
Whenever
Susie
he
Tian was
saw
also
Ling
a
Yichen
member
who
of
had
the
toned down his
mercenaries,
playboy self,
so his
and was
position as a
admiring
mafia
Yun Jian
boss
in a
was
different
secure.
way. However,
Zhang
the
Xiaofeng would
second
always
largest
point at
mafia
Yun Jian
group in
fiercely
Longman
to
City,
declare his
the
sovereignty.
Nine Valleys
This
gang
is my master,
was not to be
Ling Yichen.
underestimated.
Don't even
Other
think
than
about
Dragon
making
Head
my
gang,
master take
the
you as
Nine
his
Valleys
disciple.
gang was the second
After
largest
that,
mafia group.
Zhang Xiaofeng
Even
would
if
go
they
up
did
to
not
Yun
have
Jian
tens
with a
of
grin and
thousands of
talk about
brothers,
this and that.
they were close to
Chen
this
Sini
number.
had recovered from
Moreover,
the fright that
he
day
had divided
and
many
was back
regions.
to her usual
Even
carefree
Longman
self.
City's top
Yun
casino,
Jian received
the
news
famous
from
Prime
Zhang
Casino,
Zifan as well,
belonged to the
saying
Nine
that the
Valleys gang.
renovation of the
As the
storefront
saying
had
goes,
begun.
a mountain
and a third
cannot
of the
accommodate
space
two
had
tigers.
already been renovated.
As the underworld
It was
boss,
believed that the
Susie
renovation
Tian
would be
naturally
completed
wanted
in
to
less than
eliminate
2
the Nine
months.
Valleys gang,
Yun Jian
the
smiled
only
in
big gang
response.
that could threaten
Once
him.
the renovation
In
was
spite of
completed,
this, he did not have the
company
strength to
officially
do so.
start running.
The kosher
She was
mercenaries
confident
could send
that she
someone
could
to
set
help
the
him
new
win a
start
match,
auto sales company
but they would
on the
not
right
go to
track
such lengths
and
to
become a
eliminate the
household
Nine
name
Valleys
within the
gang
next year.
that was a threat to
Snake.
him.
Lizard
mere
sent a
mafia
message
boss
to
of
Yun
Longman
Jian,
City,
telling
it was
her that she could
unrealistic.
not rush back to
In
Longman
addition,
City for the
the
time
Nine
being,
Valleys gang's
but she
influence
had
was
already
not
ordered
weak,
someone to send
especially
Yun
in
Jian's
recent
beloved
years
car.
when they had gained
The
more
flagship
power.
limited edition
Susie Tian
Ferrari
could no
LaFerrari
longer
to
eliminate
Yun
them
Jian.
with his Dragon
Yun
Head
Jian
gang's
smirked deepened
influence
when
alone.
she heard the news,
So he could only
Yun
let
Jian
them
was not
continue
only
to
a
develop.
secret agent. Yun
She was
Jian
also
and
a
the other
collector
two
who
did
loved
not have
luxury
time
cars.
to inform their homeroom
She loved
teacher
sports cars
as they
and
left the
supercars
forest produced
park
all over the
and hailed
country.
a taxi to
In
the
her
Prime
previous
Casino.
life,
She
she
had
had collected
honest,
a lot of
Zhang
limited
Xiaofeng
edition
and Ling
cars,
Yichen were
but
still
among
rather
all the
fearful of
cars,
places like
her
the Prime
favorite was
Casino.
this Ferrari
The
LaFerrari.
term mafia was
Snake.
enough to send chills
Lizard
down
had always
one's
been
spine.
meticulous,
Nine Valleys
and did
gang,
not forget
the
to
entrance
send
of
her
the
beloved
beloved
car
casino.
over this time.
The taxi driver
Yun Jian
parked
was
his
glad
car
about
far
it.
away.
After a
drove
few
off
days
immediately
of peace,
after Yun
Qin
Jian
Yiru
paid the
received
fare.
news that her
He could
mother,
not be blamed
Yun
for this.
Jian's grandmother,
For places
was
like the
sick
Prime
and wanted
Casino
Qin
that
Yiru
belonged
to
to
go home
mafia
to visit
groups.
her.
It was
Qin
common
Yiru
for
had
some
indeed
gamblers
left the
to
Yun
be
family
chopped off,
but
and
that did
stomped
not
on the
mean that
spot
she could
when they
abandon
lost
her
and
biological
could not
mother
afford to pay.
and become an
Standing at
unfilial
the
daughter
entrance of the
who did
casino,
not even return
Yun
home.
Jian had her hands
Thus,
in her
on this
pockets.
day,
Qin
Zhang
Yiru took
Xiaofeng
the
and
remaining
Ling Yichen
100
stood
renminbi
diagonally
from her
behind
salary.
her.
She
Which
tilted
she
her
had just
head
received
and
after
looked at the two
deducting her living
trembling
expenses.
Don't go
and
in if
boarded
you're
the
afraid.
bus to return to
She could
Xinjiang
easily
town.
handle the entire
In Yun
casino
Jian's
on her
memory,
own.
Qin
But
Yiru's
with Zhang
family was not
Xiaofeng
good
and Ling
people.
Yichen,
Furthermore,
she could not guarantee
Yun
that
Gang
no
might have
accidents
already
would
returned
happen.
to Xinjiang
No,
town.
Master,
Yun
I want to
Jian
go
was
in.
afraid that Yun Gang
Zhang
would come to
Xiaofeng
Qin
said in a
Yiru's
firm
doorstep
tone.
and
Hearing
cause
Zhang
trouble.
Xiaofeng's words,
She was afraid that no
Yun
one
Jian
would
smiled
support Qin
wickedly
Yiru
and turned
Thus,
to look at
she
Ling Yichen.
insisted on going
After
back
being
with him.
stared at for a
Qin
while,
Yiru
Ling
naturally
Yichen
understood
finally
her
said
daughter's
resolutely,
thoughts.
"I'll go in too." She did not want to disappoint her daughter.
Yun
So
Jian
she
narrowed
brought
her
Yun Jian
eyes
back with
and
her.
turned to look at
Qin
Zhang
Yiru's
Xiaofeng.
family was also
She
in
smiled
Xinjiang
wickedly
town.
at him and said
However,
arrogantly,
Xinjiang town
"You can
was
keep
quite
a low
big,
profile when
so
you
her
do
family's
things,
house was
but
still
today,
a little far from
I'm going
Yun
to
Gang's
teach you a
house,
lesson,
which she
Since
used
you
to live
stepped
in.
into my circle,
It was a 3-story
you have
brick
to
house
remember
with 3
this.
suites.
If someone
In
bullies
this day
you,
and age,
even if it's the emperor,
those who could
you
afford
won't
to build a
tolerate it.
3-story house
No
with
matter
3
what the Nine
suites were
Valleys
considered
gang's
to be
motive
the
was,
best in town,
or why they kidnapped
to be
Chen
honest,
Sini.
Yun
Jian's
Jian would
grandmother's
never keep a
family
low
was not
profile
poor
when dealing with
Qin
such
Yiru's
an enemy.
sister Qin Junlan
Because if you
had a
cower
good family
today,
background,
there won't be a
she
place
would
for
often
you
help
in
her
this
uncle's
world
family,
anymore.
who lived
Yun
with
Jian
Yun
continued
Jian's
to
maternal
narrate.
grandparents.
Just like in her
Qin
previous
Yiru's
life,
mother gave birth
if she
to
was
5
not
children.
strong,
One
if
of them
she kept
died
a low
young,
profile
so
and did
Qin
not show her
Junlan was the
strength,
first
first in seniority. Even if others bullied her,
eldest son was
she would have died a long time ago.
And the next in
survival
seniority
of the
was
fittest,
elimination
as
of
for the last daughter,
and she was Yin Jian's
was never a weakling.
Qin Fangfang,
Zhang Xiaofeng,
who had married out of the province
in her early
days.
years.
He did not
She
fully
would only
understand.
come home to visit
It
during
was only
the new
when
year.
Yin Jian walked
Qin
towards the
knocked
casino
on the door and opened
that the
it.
two of them followed
She was
closely
stunned when
behind.
she saw a house
There
full
were
of
two people
sitting
who
in
looked
it.
like bodyguards
She was stunned
standing
because
at the
the person
entrance of the
sitting
casino.
in the main seat was
When they
none
saw
other
Yin
than her
Jian,
mother,
a little girl
who had
claimed
claimed
that
towards
she was
them,
sick,
they
and
quickly
waved
their
their
hands
hands
and
and
gestured
gestured
for her to go
Yin
away.
Jian narrowed her eyes
Go,
and saw two
little
people
brat, where are
standing
you
next
going?
to her nominal
This is
grandmother,
not a place you
who
should
was
be.
sitting in the main
One of
seat
them
with
pointed
an
to the
intimidating
side and
aura.
shouted at Yin
Qin
Jian
Junlan and
the
Zhang
rest
Taijun.
impatiently.
However,
Yin
Jian
Jian walked up and
Tiejuan's face
kicked
was
him.
dark.
The
and he
person
looked
was
gloomy.
sent flying into
At
the
that
casino.
moment,
Yin
Zhang
Jian was
Xiaofeng
suddenly
and Ling
enlightened.
Yichen did not expect
She was
Yin
wondering
Jian
why
to
her
be so
grandmother,
fierce. who had never liked her mother, as they recalled the meaning behind Yin Jian's words to Zhang Xiaofeng.
"Mom, are you okay?"
The girl had already stepped into the entrance of the casino,
but she still pulled Yin Jian in.
She stood at the entrance.
She asked
and
because
stepped on the chest of the
bodyguard
her mother's
who had been
condition.
kicked away.
She said loudly, "Get the boss of your 9 Valleys gang to come out and see me." Chapter 155. Mom, you're not sick? Qin Yiru asked in surprise when she saw her
Chapter
mother,
142.
Zhang Meihua. The 9 Valleys
on the
gang
stool
was
and
Longmen
pointing at
City's
her.
second mafia
She was
group
strong
after
and
all,
did not pay attention
and
to
its influence
Zhang
in
Meihwa's
Longmen
question.
City was immense.
After all,
Yin Jian's
Zhang
roar
Meihua
was
had
a humiliation
asked
to the
Qin Yiru
9
to come home
Valleys
with the
gang
excuse
members
that she was sick
in
in
bed.
bed.
A group of brawny
What's
men
sick?
with metal
You
rods dashed
unfilial
out
daughter.
from the inner room.
Do you really want
and
me to die
surrounded
early
the
from
trio
illness?
led by Yin Jian.
You're so useless.
A man with dyed
You
yellow
didn't even
hair
discuss
walked out
something
from the
as
group
important
with
as
a divorcing
divorcing
gang
Yang
from his
home.
mouth. If it
He
weren't for
studied
Yin
Yin
Jian
Jian
bumping into
and
Yin
spat the
Jian and
cigarette
Longmen
on the
City,
floor,
the
you
man
wouldn't
with
have come
dyed
home
yellow
even
hair
if you
turned
were
his
beaten to
menacing
death.
face
To
if
look
I
at
didn't
Yin
pretend
Jian
to be
from the
sick
corner
and
of
ask you
his
to
eye
come
and
home,
spoke arrogantly.
you wouldn't even acknowledge
Yo,
your mother.
little girl,
Would you?
want to see our
Zhang
boss?
Meihua slammed
Isn't
her
your
hand
tone
on
a
the
little
table
too presumptuous?
and spat out a string of words.
Aren't you afraid that we'll
In
do
fact,
something to you?
the daughter that
The
Zhang
blonde
Meihua
man's
had
voice
always
was
hated
sinister
the
when
most
he
was
spoke.
Qin Yiru.
His eyes
She
were
had
still
high
on
hopes
Yin
for her
Jian
son
when he spoke
Qin
the
Lai
last
Qian.
sentence.
When she named
Looking
her
like a
son
ruffian
Qin
who
Lai
wanted
Qian,
more.
she had hoped that
Brother
he would
Huang,
be rich.
why are you
talking
to
and
her?
that he could earn big
How dare
bucks
this
in the
brat
future.
call our boss by
Even
his
if
name
Qin Lai Qian
and ask
grew
him
up
to
to be a
come out?
spineless coward, let's
Zhang
teach her a
Meihua
lesson
still
first.
thought highly of him.
Let these 3
From
brats
Zhang
know that our
Meihua's
boss's name
perspective,
isn't to be
she was
insulted
an old
by
woman
anyone.
who favored
A
boys over
lackey
girls
standing beside
and
the
valued
blonde
the
man
rich
shouted
over
at
the
him,
poor.
and
Qin
waved the
Yiru
metal
had not
rod in
married
his
well,
hand,
but
as
she
if
had to
boasting
support
about his
2
prowess.
children with both hands.
Ha!
Even
Yin Jian
food and
scoffed in
clothing had
response.
become a problem.
At the same time,
This made Zhang
Yin
Meihua
Jian took a
dislike her
step
even
forward.
more. Her
In
cold,
fact, Zhang
hawk-like
Meihua
eyes
had
stared
received
at
the
the group
news
before
that
her
Qin
as she
Yiru was
smirked.
planning to leave
Do
the
you
Yin
think you're
family.
qualified to teach me a
However,
lesson?
she did not mention
After
it, nor
that,
did she ask.
Zhang Xiaofeng
What
and
Zhang
Ling
Meihua
Yichen,
was most
who were
afraid of
standing
was
not far
that
behind
Qin
Yin
Yiru
Jian,
would really bring the
saw
2
Yin
children
Jian
to
stretch
stay
out
at her
her
parents'
hands.
house
A
shamelessly.
few stones the
Zhang
size of
Meihua
diamonds
even wondered
appeared
why
between
she
her
had given
fair and
birth
clean
to such a
fingers.
dumb daughter. She waved
If
her
she had
hands
known
and
that she
hurled the
was so
stones out.
useless,
She
these
would have killed
stones
her
were
in
like
the cradle.
several sharp swords.
As for why she had
and with
pretended to
frightening
be sick
speed
to
and
call Qin
accuracy,
Yiru back, they
it
smashed
was
towards
because
the group
Zhang
of strong
Taijun
men
said that he
holding
saw
iron
Yin
rods.
Jian
At the auction.
Plop, plop.
Not only that,
An orderly
Yin
sound
Jian
rang
had
out.
also bought a
The 6
storefront
to
with
7
more than
brawny
10
men
million
who were
yuan.
holding metal
More
rods
than
were
10
hit
million
in the
yuan
knees by pebbles.
Zhang Meihua had
And
never
all of them
seen
knelt
so
down
much money
toward
in her
Yin
life
Jian.
in the
Where
order
did
they were
Yin
spread
Jian
out
get the
around
money
them.
from?
Zhang
She actually
Xiaofeng and
bought a
Ling
lousy
Yichen were completely
storefront with so
dumbfounded.
much money.
Both of
When
them
Zhang
thought that
Meihua
Yin
first
Jian's
heard the
ability
news,
had been
she was
unleashed to
flustered,
its fullest,
especially
when she
shooting.
heard from Zhang
What was going
Taijun
on here, though?
that Yin Jian
Throwing
knew
stones
Mayor
at the
Gu.
same time,
Forget that
and
she
hitting
knew
a
Mayor
few
Gu.
brawny men in
Zhang
one
Meihua
move.
was also
It was
Yin
impossible
Jian's
to
uncle-in-law.
execute such a move
Not only
without
did she not
extremely
praise her
precise
uncle-in-law to
technique.
Mayor Gu,
They had only seen
she had
such
even
a scene in a
indirectly
movie where an
encouraged Mayor
assassin
Gu to
killed
distance
someone.
himself
Yin
from
Jian
Zhang
knew how to
Taijun.
kill people.
Zhang Meihua's
Both of them were
mind
dumbfounded.
Zhang
Let's go.
Meihua. Zhang
Yin
Meihua
Jian turned her head
Zhang
to
Meihua's
instruct Zhang
father.
Xiaofeng and
Zhang
Ling
Meihua
Yichen.
Qin Yiru
Then,
was reprimanded
she
for no
stepped over
reason,
the group of
biting
brawny
her
men
lip
who were
she
kneeling
finally
on the
said
ground
meekly, and had
Mom,
no
it's my
idea
fault.
what had just happened. She had picked up
She.
these stones from
She.
the lawn in the
She.
park.
She
Touch
did
your
not
conscience
expect them
and
to
tell
come
me,
in handy.
how does your
Although they
sister's
were not
family
as
treat
handy
you?
as hidden weapons,
They were not too shabby either. Your family is suffering and starving. Isn't it all because your sister
no matter
lent
how
you money to
suspicious
tide
Zhang
you over?
Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen
But look
were.
at your family's
They would
Yin
never
Jian.
think that
She
Yin
actually
Jian
went
was
to
an
the auction
assassin
alone
or a secret agent.
I don't know where she got
They
more
did
than
not
10
dare to
million
continue
yuan
standing in
more
the
than
same
10
spot.
million yuan.
So,
She only
while
bought
the
a
yellow-haired
storefront
man and the others were
also,
stunned,
your family's
they
Yin
followed
Jian
Yin
knows
Jian's
Mayor Gu.
footsteps.
She knows
They
Mayor
stepped
Gu
over the
because
screen
she's
at the
capable.
entrance,
But how did
walked
she
straight
repay
to
your
the center
sister's
of the
family?
casino.
Taijun
In the
had
center of
something
the
to
casino,
ask of Mayor Gu.
wave after wave
But what
of
did your
gamblers
daughter
sat
do?
together,
She actually
making a
encouraged
racket.
Mayor Gu to
Big,
ignore Taijun.
big.
I'll
bet on big. I was wondering why our Qin family gave birth to such an unfilial descendant like you. What sins have I? The gamblers were having a good time. Their tireless voices echoed throughout the casino. At this moment, Yun Jian led Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen around the lively casino and grew more shocked to the back door. To Zhang Meihua, her eyes widening in the end. She glanced at Yun Jian and stuttered to defend Yun Jian to Zhang Meihua. This, Chapter 143, how can Xiao Jian have more than 10 million yuan? And how does she know pass through the center of the smoky casino? There must be some kind of misunderstanding through the back door. How can your brother-in-law in the casino was busy gambling to further enhance the atmosphere of the place, glaring at Qin No one had the time to care about Yun Jian. Zhang Taijun, who had been staring at Yun Jian for a long time, passing through the back door, his tone heavy with concern. The front hall abruptly subsided. How can I spot nonsense? Follow me closely from now on. Your Xiao Jian is right here. No matter what happens, what happened that day is clear as day. Yun Jian turned to instruct Zhang Xiaofeng. Zhang Taijun had actually thought of many solutions after he was ignored that day. Nodded. His plan could not go to waste. Know what Yin Jian meant. If Mayor Gu's plan was not approved, his funds would not be able to flow. They chose to believe her unconditionally. There was only one result. They then passed through a dark corridor without lights. He had set up with his friend would face the danger of bankruptcy. Not daring to even breathe loudly, came up with a great idea. They had never thought that they would be able to barge into the mafia's territory about Yin Jian. To them, this way, the mafia was the most terrifying place in existence. As for Yin Jian's mother, the girl who led them forward, however, she was Zhang Meihua's daughter after all, hint of fear. So she dared not disobey her. Yin Jian smirked with a squint. As long as Qin Yu reprimanded Yin Jian, she glanced sideways at a room with warm lighting in front of them. Refuse to help. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's ultimate goal was for Yin Jian to convince Mayor Gu, as if they had made a pact. Sign. Yin Jian, on the other hand, walked forward casually. Yin Jian was amused when she saw every orange light from the door was the office of Longmen City's second mafia boss, Zhang Meihua's plan. Yuan Xixiao. In spite of it, the corridor was dark, was not and there were no windows. Since she could do it, she naturally had a way to solve it. Warm light coming she from looked at everyone coldly. From this, and her red lips was certain that the person was inside. That's right, I know Mayor Gu. In contrast to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's cautiousness, she glanced sideways at everyone before looking at unafraid of making a commotion. She went to the door and kicked it open. I bought the store on behalf of Mayor Gu before. The money belongs to him too. She was now certain that she was the reason Yin Jian was taken away. So I helped him bid for the store. Perhaps it was the experience of her younger brother being taken away Yin Jian turned and killed in her past life. She had thought that the money belonged to Yin Jian. Those who took away the money belonged to Yin Jian. She hated no matter where it came from. She hated it was reasonable that the people she cared about filial piety toward her. Clang, as she was her grandmother. Kick was so forceful that it broke the door lock. Zhang Meihua's attitude toward her in the future would definitely improve. At the same time, not only Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Jian had said so, the people inside the room felt their eyelids twitching. After all, there were three people standing in the room. How could she have more than 10 man in a suit standing in the middle of the trio? Zhang Meihua did not intend to let go. Boss. Even if Yin Jian did not have money, Yuan Xixiao heard the door's broken door lock. Thus, he shuddered and immediately all over his body. Yin Jian, the other two men standing next to Yuan Xixiao, did not look any better. How could you smear your uncle's reputation? Just when the three people in the room were staring at the young girl who had broken through the door, they saw the young girl raise her foot and walk into the room. Since the matter has been explained clearly, you should quickly contact Mayor Gu. She used her sharp and deep eyes to look at Yuan Xixiao. Then this matter will be over. She called out Yuan Xixiao's full name as if Yin Jian had done something wrong and had to make up for Yuan Xixiao. Yin Jian suddenly felt that it was against the kosher mercenaries. Her explanation was meant for Qin Yu. The girl's tone was frivolous, that she was but her words made Yuan Xixiao. Why should I help you? The other three men gasped. Because when my mother left the Yun family and had nowhere to go, as her family, you did not say a word and did not care about her life or death. Or because Kosher Mercenaries was a team from my mother the world when she was injured and hospitalized. It was the vanguard among the assassin organizations able to repay them. Other than in Han Group, Yin Jian suddenly narrowed her eyes could be pointed out invincible in the world, and the others whenever Yuan Xixiao mentioned such an organization to his brothers in the past, and a sinister chill assaulted everyone's hearts. Yin Jian slammed the door and walked in, humiliating Yuan Xixiao and his men. Just as they were about to lash out at the young and frivolous girl, 157, they did not expect her to boast shamelessly. Everyone was a member of kosher mercenaries. They did not expect her to actually say it. Yuan Xixiao understood, in fact, that if an everyone knew what they were talking about, nonsense in the name of kosher would never say such things in front of her elders. Would seek revenge even when her family was so unbearable. Since Yin Jian dared to say it, she must be a member of kosher mercenaries. Now that her daughter had pointed it out so blatantly, kosher mercenaries had spies all over the world and could even find out about trivial matters. Recalling the suffering she had gone through was just a member of kosher mercenaries and the indifference of her family. Yuan Xixiao would not have to be so frightened and shocked. Uncontrollably. Kosher mercenaries had members turned around in a fluster with her back facing everyone and wiped her tears. Who occupied a position in Longmen City. She thought about how she would have died long kosher mercenaries if she did not have Qin Yu and Xiao Jian. Yuan Xixiao grasped Yin Jian's words tightly. She rubbed Qin Yu back to comfort her. Do you want to start a war with us kosher mercenaries? Did not think that she was wrong. It could be said that her position in kosher mercenaries was extraordinary. They might become the source of she could even summon kosher mercenaries to start a war with him. She might become Zhang Meihua. and the mere member of Kosha mercenaries for the rest of her life. Use such an arrogant
She knew
tone
that she had never
claimed to be a member of
nature
Kosha mercenaries
and did not know how to face it.
Yuan
But
Su
this was
Xiao,
the only thing
the woman
she would not
standing
admit.
next to him,
If they
and
showed
his
weakness to
confidence
Zhang
standing
Meihua
next to
and the
him were
rest,
all stunned.
it would mean
That
they were
they could be so
dumbfounded.
weak.
The girl
This
before
was not
them
an
who looked
outcome that
underage
Yun Jian
was
could
actually
tolerate.
a high-ranking
Zhang
member of
Meihua
Kosha
and the rest were
mercenaries.
stunned as well.
The news was too
Zhang
shocking.
Meihua froze not
Of course,
because she was
Yuan
ashamed or
Xiao and his
remorseful.
men did not
It was
know how
because
they
it
would
was the
react
truth.
if they knew that
But
Yun
it was
Jian
not something to
was
be
the boss
happy
of
about
Kosha
when it came from
mercenaries.
someone else's
Zhang
mouth.
Xiaofeng and Lin
Hence,
Yichen, who
Zhang
followed Yun
Meihua
Jian,
slapped the
and were
table even
dumbfounded
more
as well.
angrily and shouted
Kosha
at Yun Jian.
mercenaries? How could
Because
they not
I gave
know?
birth to your
It was
mother.
an internationally
She's a piece of
renowned
flesh that
mercenary
fell from my
organization.
womb.
Without
In spite
me,
of it,
your mother won't
Zhang
exist.
Xiaofeng and Ling
You won't
Yichen
be
knew
born
that
either.
Yun Jian
So
was
you have
just
to
an
listen to
ordinary
me.
third-year middle
Zhang
school
Meihua
girl.
did not say it
Thinking
out
about
loud,
it,
but
both of them
everyone else
frowned
had added
and
it in their
decided to
minds
wait and see
as
what
she
would happen.
spoke. Zhang Meihua
Did I
even
take your
swept
men
away
away?
the chicken
My
feathers
young
on the
friend,
table.
you can't
and
simply
knocked
say
them on the
that.
table.
I'm a
She
man
then
of the
reprimanded
underworld,
Qin Yiru.
but I've never done
Qin
anything
Yiru,
outrageous.
look at your daughter.
Yuan
Siding with an
Xixiao's
outsider
attitude toward Yun
You're
Jian
still
was very
spouting
amiable.
nonsense.
At least
After
from
saying
Yuan
this,
Xixiao's point
Zhang
of view,
Meihua
it
completely
did not
ignored
matter
Qin
if
Yiru's
Yun
tear-stained
Jian
face.
was really a high-ranking
She even
member
criticized
of Kosha
Yun Jian
mercenaries,
in front of Qin
but he would
Yiru.
rather assume
Your daughter
that she
is
was
so
a
petty and
high-ranking member
unfilial.
than
She's
take the
already
risk
like
of
this
angering
at such a
Kosha
young age.
mercenaries.
What can a
Yun
person
Jian
like her do
scoffed
when she
and went
grows
straight
up?
to Yuan
Zhang
Xixiao's desk
Meihua was
from the
indeed
door.
embarrassed from anger today. Zhang Meihua was a person who cared a lot about her reputation. Now that Yun Jian had revealed such a blatant truth in front of everyone, she naturally couldn't hold back her anger. After Zhang Meihua said this, Qin Junlan, who was beside her, chimed in. It was really one answering and one singing. Qin Liqian and the others were also on Zhang Meihua's side. Actually, Yun Jian's grandfather had passed away a few years ago due to illness. At that time, Yun Jian was still very young. In Yun Jian's memory, her grandfather was very good to Qin Yiru, and even more so to the original Yun Jian. Sometimes, he would even secretly give all his hard-earned wages to Qin Yiru to subsidize her family's expenses. Of course, these things were hidden from Zhang Meihua. Later on, her grandfather, Qin Yiru, passed away. There was no one in the family who could support Qin Yiru anymore. Therefore, Qin Yiru rarely returned to her parents' home. Even after leaving the Yin family, she was unwilling to return to her parents' home. Instead, she chose to leave Xinjiang town with her child, to seek refuge with her old friends. I don't need someone like you to judge whether I'm successful or not. Old hag, if you dare to say another word, I guarantee that you won't see the sun tomorrow. After comforting Qin Yiru, Yun Jian turned around and stared sharply at Zhang Meihua and the others. Yun Jian's eyes turned a strange dark red. She looked like a murderous demon. Qin Junlan, who was standing beside Zhang Meihua, felt her eyelids twitch when she saw Yun Jian like this. Her. Qin Junlan was suddenly reminded of how Yun Jian had smashed a wooden stool in front of her in the hospital, and how she had helped everyone dodge the sniper's bullet in the hotel. She pointed at Yun Jian and screamed at the top of her lungs. Because Yun Jian's gaze was just as terrifying as hers back then. What are you screaming for? Zhang Meihua's tone was obviously weaker when she spoke to Qin Junlan, but she still reprimanded her for screaming. Zhang Meihua even grumbled in her heart. Yun Jian only gave them a look. Look, did they have to be so scared? No matter what, Yun Jian was just a child. Mom, you don't know. She smashed a wooden stool in the hospital with one kick. When we met at the hotel last time, she even pushed us to dodge the sniper's bullet. Qin Junlan suddenly remembered and was scared, so she screamed. Chapter 158. Zhang Meihua and her friends were good with their words in the past when they bickered with each other. However, when they really got into a fight, they would turn weak immediately without any ability. To put it bluntly, they were people who loved to spout nonsense and put on airs when they were actually weak. Especially when Qin Junlan said that Yun Jian crushed a wooden stool with one foot and led everyone to dodge the sniper's bullet. Zhang Meihua and her friends could not help shuddering just from listening to it. To them, it was as miraculous as a group of sows flying in the sky, since it came from Qin Junlan, Zhang Meihua, and the rest did not doubt the authenticity of her words. Therefore,
All of them stared at Yun Jian in fear, as if they were trying to see through Yun Jian. Since you said that I'm petty and unfilial, I'll do as you say today. How about I break your necks one by one right now? Seeing how fearful these people were of her after hearing what she said, Yun Jian changed her strategy, as a faint voice came from her throat. Of course, she would not really break all of their necks. Even if she wanted to, Qin Yiru would probably not watch her do it. They were her family after all. Even if she abandoned everything, and no matter how disgusting these people were, the blood relationship could not be severed. As expected after Yun Jian spoke, Qin Yiru, who had been quietly wiping her tears, cried out. Xiao Jian, don't. Murder was illegal. Not to mention that these people were related to her by blood. No matter how bad it was, Qin Yiru did not wish to see such an extreme scene happen. Qin Yiru could no longer be bothered with how Yun Jian had become so powerful. After so many days, Qin Yiru had gradually gotten used to Yun Jian's current personality. Whatever she said, she would definitely do it. Hence Qin Yiru stopped Yun Jian right away. Yun Jian was unmoved by Qin Yiru's words. On the contrary, Yun Jian glanced sideways at Qin Yiru and told her with narrowed eyes, Mom, stay out of this. With that, she glared daggers at Zhang Meihua and the others. Suddenly, she extended her hand and conjured a small knife out of nowhere like a magic trick. With a sinister smirk, she approached the men with the knife in her hand. If I stab all of you to death with this knife, I don't think you'll feel any pain before you die. As Yun Jian spoke, she rubbed the sharp tip of the knife with her fingers, uttering the terrifying words in a normal tone. Qin Yiru would probably feel bad if she attacked Zhang Meihua and her family. Even if she scolded them, it would be useless because Zhang Meihua and her friends were shameless people. In spite of it, Yun Jian had countless ways to deal with such situations. She could even force a brainwashed assassin to talk, let alone Zhang Meihua and the others. She intended to teach these people a lesson. You, what are you trying to do? Qin Junlan was so scared that she subconsciously retreated. She sounded like she was about to cry. It was obvious that what Yun Jian had done previously made her tremble in fear. Zhang Meihua was indeed Qin Junlan's mother. Not only were their tones and words similar, but they were also equally timid. Zhang Meihua was scared out of her wits by Yun Jian's eerie and terrifying actions. She kept retreating. The group of people retreated until they reached the corner of the wall. They could no longer retreat any further and stopped. It's good that you're standing there. Let's see if my knife can hit one of your heads like a flying knife. Yun Jian chuckled evilly. As she spoke, she suddenly held the knife in her hand. What are you doing? What you're doing is illegal. The last sound came from the group of people's screams. It was because the saber in Yun Jian's hand was already flying toward where they were with the last clang. Qin Yiru could not stop it in time. She shouted, No! And Yun Jian had already thrown the knife. After the screams, the group of people who were leaning against the wall opened their eyes in fear. Zhang Meihua looked up slightly and saw that the knife was embedded in the wall right above her head. Zhang Meihua was dumbfounded. The group of people heaved a sigh of relief. Just then Zhang Meihua, who was scared out of her wits, felt something warm flowing out from under her flowery pants. Everyone smelled the stench and looked over. They saw a yellowish liquid flowing out from under Zhang Meihua's pants. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. Chapter 159. TSK Tisk. When Yun Jian saw this scene, she held her chin with her hand and sighed. Her goal was to scare them, so that they would not dare to cause trouble for Qin Yiru in the future. However, he didn't expect Zhang Meihua to be so aggressive and fearless all the time. She only teased them a little, and Zhang Meihua was so scared that she peed her pants. Really, you can't judge a book by its cover. Let me tell you, if today's incident happens again. Yun Jian glanced at the people who were paralyzed with fear. She paused and continued. If it happens again, this knife will pierce through your heads. I, Yun Jian, am a woman of my words. If you don't believe me, wipe your heads clean and wait for me. Yun Jian realized that ever since she was reborn, she had done a lot of threatening and frightening things. If this had happened in her previous life, the group of people in front of her would have turned into corpses. However, her identity was different now, and her situation was different. More importantly, she had her mother and brother. Especially in a society ruled by law, killing people was illegal. Her nature was slowly changing, it was just that Yun Jian did not notice it. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she tiptoed and took the knife from the wall above Qin Yiru. Then, she turned and walked to Qin Yiru. She pulled Qin Yiru's hand and walked out. She did not want to stay here for a second longer. Presumably, Qin Yiru felt the same way. Seeing Yun Jian's actions, no one dared to make a sound. When they saw Yun Jian pulling Qin Yiru away, Zhang Meihua was like a balloon that had lost its air. She fell to the ground with a thump. It was only when they were far away from the Qin residence that Qin Yiru shuddered, tears streaming down her cheeks like a faucet. Yun Jian did not know how to comfort Qin Yiru. She placed her hand on Qin Yiru's back and rubbed gently to comfort her. Just when Yun Jian thought that Qin Yiru would be quiet for a long time, Qin Yiru suddenly spoke. She closed her eyes like she had made a decision before she sighed and said mournfully, "Xiao Jian, I want to go somewhere." Qin Yiru did not mention a word about Yun Jian's unusual skills. Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief when she did not ask. Xinjiang Town, Mount Wui. Mount Wui was an ordinary mountain range that was located near Xinjiang Town. Near the Wui mountain was farmland, but there was a cemetery dedicated to the burial of the older generation after they had passed away. Yun Jian's grandfather, Qin Youfu, was buried here. When Qin Yiru was in Xinjiang Town, she would come here alone every few days to pay respects to her father, who had been the best to her when he was alive. She would remove the weeds in front of his grave, so that others would not mistake it as an untended grave. Life and death were like fleeting clouds in Qin Yiru's eyes. In the blink of an eye, her father had passed away for so many years. She was still in a daze even now. "Xiao Jian, he's your grandpa," Qin Yiru told Yun Jian as she stared at the old man's black photo on the tombstone with teary eyes. Yun Jian followed Qin Yiru's gaze and saw the old man's frail yet benevolent black and white photo. Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru missed her father. She had received too little familial love. Her husband's betrayal and disloyalty, her family's lack of understanding and resentment. The only father who treated her well had passed away early. The original owner of the body was immature. Although she was well-behaved, she never understood Qin Yiru's pain. Qin Yiru could only endure it alone. Yun Jian went over and gently rested Qin Yiru's head on her shoulder before patting her back. Yun Jian spoke softly and gently. "Mom, let's live well. Live a more glorious life than anyone else. Grandpa will be happy to see this from heaven." Qin Yiru's tears dripped onto Yun Jian's shoulder. She nodded with clenched teeth, feeling warm and sorrowful at the same time. The feeling was indescribable. Those who were alive had to live well. Yun Jian did not know why she said that. Chapter 160. Before leaving Mount Wui and returning to Longmen City, Yun Jian went to Lu Fian's house. Her return to Xinjiang Town this time was unexpected, but since she was back, Yun Jian went to visit Lu Fian as well. It did not take long before she boarded the bus back to Longmen City. When Li Xiangyi, Wu Kuei, and when Rui's basketball team heard that Yun Jian had returned to Xinjiang Town, they abandoned their ongoing basketball match and rushed to Lu Fian's house. It was a pity that Yun Jian had already returned to Longmen City. After spending a weekend at home, Yun Jian was about to go to school with her backpack when she saw a tall and muscular man standing in front of her when she exited the villa. The man was standing with his body turned to the side. His face was rather handsome from the side, but there was a hint of gentleness between his brows. Yun Jian recognized him immediately. He was none other than Siyi's subordinate, the calm man named Mo. Senator. Speaking of Siyi, Yun Jian had not seen him since Siyi left due to an emergency during the banquet in Country M. She was slightly taken aback when she saw Siyi's subordinate, but she went over anyway. "Miss Yun," Mo's son called out to Yun Jian politely, a respectful expression on his handsome face. Yun Jian turned to look at Mo's son with her backpack slung over her shoulder. She smiled. Is something the matter? Young master asked me to pass this to you. Emo-san did not explain further as he fished out an envelope from his pocket and passed it to Yun Jian. His gaze was dark. After Yun Jian took the envelope, he continued. Young master said that you'll understand after reading this. After saying that, Emo-san took 2 steps back, turned around and left. He was only here to deliver the letter. Yun Jian was baffled. She extended her slender fingers to open the envelope swiftly and pulled out a note from it. Reading the note, Yun Jian lowered her gaze and grinned all of a sudden. As expected, the old guys from the Kosha mercenaries couldn't sit still anymore. They even extended their influence to the Inhun organization. However, Yun Jian didn't know why Ce had told her that these old men wanted to work with Inhun. Did Ce notice that he was the boss of the Kosha mercenaries? Now Yun Jian had basically confirmed Ce's identity. Who else could Ce be able to make Shueying, one of the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization, his subordinate other than the leader of the organization? Yun Jian was not surprised because she was an agent trained by the Inhun organization. She had some understanding of the Inhun organization. For example, the leader of Inhun was a young man. She had always known about this, although she didn't know who it was. Other than that, she couldn't find any other relevant information even in her past life. She just didn't expect Ce to be the leader of Inhun organization. It was obvious that Ce did not plan to hide his identity from Yun Jian, since he admitted that Shueying was his subordinate in front of her. Yun Jian could not wrap her head around it. When Yun Jian returned to school after the weekend self-study session, a girl rushed into the classroom just as she placed her bag on the table. This person was none other than Chen Sini, who had a carefree personality and was never overcautious. Since the kidnapping incident, Chen Sini had completely recovered. She ran to Yun Jian and held up a form in her hand with a chuckle, telling Yun Jian, "Hehehe Jian Jian, did you know? I heard from the English teacher in the office just now that some of the top students from DE Senior High School are going to be sent to a foreign school for a week as foreign exchange students. Our school has 5 spots, and they've all been allocated to Year 3 students. I've been selected too. Your results are so good that you're already a candidate. This means that we can go abroad for further studies together." Chen Sini shook Yun Jian's hand excitedly, overjoyed. Chen Sini was the English class representative. Her results were decent, but there were many others who were better than her. Nevertheless, it was a surprise that she was selected this time, due to her high level of English. Yun Jian did not express any joy or worry about the sudden news. When she heard that the students from DE Senior High School were going as well, she could not help raising a brow. Chapter 161. What about me? What about me? Zhang Xiaofeng was the first to pop his head over and ask excitedly, when he heard that they were representing the school to study abroad. Forget about it. Haha. Your English is so bad and you don't know anything about speaking. You're not part of this. Chen Sini teased Zhang Xiaofeng as she waved the form in her hand. The brother and sister pair were in an uproar. Yun Jian was already used to such things, so she merely pressed her lips together. If her brother was going, she was going as well. Moreover, if Qin Yiru heard that both of them were representing the school to participate in such an honorable event, she would probably be thrilled, right? As it turned out, Qin Yiru held her cheeks as tears streamed down her cheeks when she heard the news. These were the tears of a mother who was touched to hear that her children were fighting for her honor after going through so much. When Yun Jian heard Chen Sini say that the top students of DE Senior High School were being sent to an overseas school as exchange students for a week, she already knew that her brother, Yun Yi, would definitely be on the list of invitees. It was because her brother, Yun Yi, was the first to be invited as the top student representative of DE Senior High School. Since the event this time was related to the school's and even the country's honor, all the students who participated in this trip would be reimbursed by their superiors. In other words, the participants did not have to pay for anything out of their own pocket, unless they wanted to buy souvenirs from overseas. Qin Yiru breathed a huge sigh of relief when she heard about it. She did not have any money, but she would definitely blame herself if her daughter and son were to lose such a chance to perform because of this. Xiao Jian Xiao Yi, you're both my pride. Qin Yiru wiped her tears and took out a few crumpled 100 yuan bills that she had been keeping for a long time from her pocket, wanting to give 50 yuan each to Yun Jian and Yin Yi as she spoke. Take it. You still have to spend what you need to when you're overseas. Don't let others laugh at you. Qin Yiru pushed the money into their hands. Mom, we don't need to spend any money. The school will take care of our food and accommodation. Yun Yi quickly stuffed the money back into Qin Yiru's hands. He knew that this money was the salary that Qin Yiru had saved for a long time. Yun Jian held the money in her hand and felt warm in her heart. She was not in a hurry to return the money to Qin Yiru. The wealth that she had was more than what an ordinary person could spend in a few lifetimes. However, in her heart, this huge wealth was not as warm as the 50 yuan that Qin Yiru had given her. After a long time, Yun Jian finally put the money on the table and pushed it in front of Qin Yiru. Mom, I don't want this money. You know that I know Mayor Gu, and I have a partnership with him. I don't lack pocket money. Yun Jian's words were ambiguous, but she expressed her meaning. She could only use Mayor Gu and come up with a random lie now. Xiao Jianyu. Qin Yiru was stunned and was about to speak when Yun Jian interrupted her. She even took out 2 100 yuan notes from her pocket and placed them gently on the table, pressing her lips together. It's true, Mom. You have to believe me. This money is earned legitimately. If she took out all her money and showed it to Qin Yiru would probably faint from shock. Thus, she could only take it slowly and let Qin Yiru digest it slowly. Qin Yiru opened her mouth, but swallowed her words in the end. She looked at Yun Jian in relief and said while holding back her tears, Good girl, it's Mom who's useless. You guys have suffered. Going overseas required going through the procedures. Underage children had to go through a series of complicated procedures, such as their parents' signatures. Qin Yiru did not go to work today. She had applied for leave to go through the procedures for the 2 children. The diplomatic event this time was set to be held a month later, so there was still plenty of time for the students to prepare or pack up. When Yun Jian returned to school this week, she was summoned to the office for some reason. It was only when she arrived that she saw an unfamiliar middle-aged man standing in front of her. The man was sitting upright, dressed in ordinary clothes but exuding the righteousness of a soldier. Chapter 162. Gu Junjian recognized Yun Jian, but Yun Jian didn't recognize him. Hence, when his gaze landed on Yun Jian, she frowned. Standing beside Gu Junjian was their homeroom teacher, Mr. Yu. The moment Gu Junjian saw Yun Jian, he could tell that she was the person he was looking for. He had seen her photo before. She was an obedient and beautiful young lady. Hence, he strode towards Yun Jian. You're Yun Jian. Gu Yunjian's cheerful voice carried a hint of nervousness. Not only was he a soldier, but he was also the leader of the National Special Forces. At the same time, he was also a scout who discovered the potential of the young generation to become Special Forces soldiers. The Special Forces soldiers were also commonly known as special agents. The special agents here were different from the underground agents in Yun Jian's previous life. The special agents here were loyal to the country. However, not everyone could become a special agent if they wanted to. Sometimes they even needed extraordinary talent. Hence, whenever Gu Junjian met a young person who was agile, he would pull them into the ranks of the Special Forces soldiers he trained. Yun Jian was able to kill the internationally famous cold-faced killer, Wolfblade, all by herself. It was obvious that she was definitely a powerful person. At least, even as the leader of the National Advanced Special Forces, Gu Junjian couldn't do it. Hence, he planned to recruit her. I am. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She glanced at Mr. Yu, then turned to look at Gu Junjian. When Gu Junjian heard Yun Jian admit it, he was delighted. He rolled his eyes and asked her, Then did you appear in a large factory in the suburbs a few days ago? This was the place where Yun Jian killed Wolfblade. However, Gu Junjian couldn't directly ask her if she killed Wolfblade in front of Mr. Yu. She was actually probing Yun Jian indirectly with her words. Yun Jian looked up. Although she didn't know why Gu Junjian asked this, she was used to not answering such questions. No. She never blinks when she tells a lie. Even Gu Junjian, who had always been close to her, could not tell that Yun Jian was lying. Could he have gotten the wrong person? She wasn't the one who killed Wolfblade that day. Gu Junjian frowned and fell silent for a moment. A trace of disappointment appeared in his eyes. Then I'm sorry. It seems that I've got the wrong person. Gu Junjian lowered his eyes and turned to leave the office. When the teachers in the office saw this, they were all puzzled, including Teacher Yu. When Gu Junjian arrived, he showed his certificate of assisting the police investigation. Coupled with what he said just now, could it be that Yun Jian was involved in something bad? Or did she do something wrong and get arrested by the police? If such a thing really happened, it wouldn't be a good thing for the school. However, before the teachers had time to think about it, Gu Junjian, who had already walked 2 steps past Yun Jian toward the office door, suddenly turned around. With lightning speed, he clenched his fist and swung it directly at Yun Jian. When the teachers in the office saw this scene, they were so frightened that they screamed. The strength of this sudden sneak attack was obvious. Was he planning to beat the thin and weak Yun Jian into meat paste with this punch? The teachers could almost predict the tragic outcome. Teacher Yu's heart tightened even more. Yun Jian was her student. If something happened to her in school, she had to take responsibility. Just when everyone was sure that Gu Junjian must have gone crazy, and would suddenly throw a powerful punch at Yun Jian, and guarantee that Yun Jian wouldn't be able to fight back, and would be beaten to the ground. Yun Jian's eyes suddenly sharpened. She flipped her hand, and easily caught Gu Junjian's domineering iron fist. She kicked Gu Junjian to the ground with her leg, and held Gu Junjian's arm with one hand. Just like the police, she pinned Gu Junjian to the ground. This action frightened all the teachers in the office. In their hearts, students were good at learning. Whoever was good at learning and studying would have a bright future. Some teachers even liked to pretend to be high profile in front of their students. For example, if a teacher forgot to bring her books during class, she would casually ask a student to run an errand for her. The student wouldn't dare to disobey, because if the student didn't listen, the teacher would make things difficult for the student in the future. These teachers had never seen such a brutal scene, especially when Yun Jian actually single-handedly took down Gu Junjian, who had a strong physique. The group of teachers suddenly became uneasy. Chapter 163. Just when the teachers thought that Gu Junjian would fly into a rage, they heard a deep and clear male voice. Ha ha ha. Good job. Gu Junjian retracted his arm. Yun Jian did not stop him either. He stood up and laughed loudly, looking at Yun Jian again. The person in the factory that day was really you. How could a normal person be so calm when faced with such a surprise attack, and suppress him instead? Gu Junjian knew that he was not weak. He also knew how agile Yun Jian was just now. Even if she had wanted to kill him just now, he probably would not have been able to retaliate. This thought deepened Gu Junjian's thoughts. Yun Jian lowered her gaze. She did not expect Gu Junjian to make such a move, but since that was the case, she did not have to pretend anymore. Why are you looking for me? Yun Jian pursed her lips and asked. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Gu Junjian. I'm the captain of the country's advanced special forces. Gu Junjian was not afraid of revealing his identity in front of the teachers. As he spoke, he paused, then extended an invitation to Yun Jian in front of all the teachers. Now, on behalf of the country's advanced special forces, I would like to formally invite you to join us. Inviting Yun Jian to join the country's advanced special forces? The teachers' jaws dropped, all of them tongue-tied in shock. Gu Junjian had claimed to be a police officer in front of the teachers, and now he was the captain of the special forces. He wanted to invite Yun Jian to join them. Everyone knew that anyone who could be invited to join the advanced special forces would have a bright future that the teachers present could not compare to. Yun Jian. She actually had the honor to be personally invited by Gu Junjian, the captain of the advanced special forces. Just when the teachers thought that Yun Jian would immediately agree to Gu Yunjian's request, she raised a brow and said, "I refuse." "Why?" This exclamation came from Gu Junjian. One had to know that those who could enter the advanced special forces were the cream of the crop. It was an honor that everyone yearned for. And she actually refused. Reason: Yun Jian wasn't in a hurry. In front of everyone, she used her leg to hook a stool in front of the teacher's desk and sat down. She crossed her legs and looked at Gu Junjian. If Yun Jian did such a thing normally, the teachers would definitely scold her severely. She was still so arrogant and despotic in the teacher's office. She didn't know her identity as a student. But now the teachers, who were usually dignified and proud, did not even dare to breathe loudly. Gu Junjian immediately understood what Yun Jian meant. He smiled again as he thought about how Yun Jian was so young, and yet she did not immediately agree to his request for fame and fortune. Thus he smiled and promised, "As long as you agree to join us, you can do whatever you want in Z country. As long as you don't take anyone's life recklessly. While you're in Z country, be it in or out of the country, the advanced special forces will be your strong backing." The condition was very tempting to Yun Jian. She was in Z country, but she would gradually be related to the underground organizations in her past life. What she hated the most was to see her family being harmed because of her when she was not around. Perhaps Qin Yiru and Yun Yi would be captured and used to threaten her because of her. Just like in her past life, it was because she did not have 3 heads and 6 arms that her younger brother was captured by the enemy and used to threaten her when she was on a mission. In the end, she lost her family tragically. Joining Gu Yunjian's team would guarantee that Qin Yiru and Yun Yi would be well protected even if she was not in Longmen City in the future. The country's protection for them would not allow them to be harmed easily. Moreover, Gu Junjian meant that even if she injured someone in the future and was taken to the police station, she could be released immediately. Was this the treatment of the advanced special forces? Chapter 164. She agreed again. The teachers were still in a daze as they watched the scene unfold before them. Did that mean that Yun Jian would be a citizen of the country from now on? Even if her family background was poor, as long as she was a citizen of the country, these teachers would not dare to lay a finger on her. Welcome to the team. Gu Junjian was overjoyed when he heard that Yun Jian had agreed. From the exchange of blows with Yun Jian earlier, he could feel that Yun Jian alone was more powerful than all the young elites he had recruited from the team put together. How could Gu Junjian not be surprised that such a powerful person had joined them? Yun Jian nodded slightly and pursed her lips. Then I'll look for you on Friday after school. I'll introduce you to the young advanced special forces candidates that we've discovered. Gu Junjian continued. People of Yun Jian's age would definitely not become members of the advanced special forces right away after joining them. Usually, those who had just joined the organization were candidates. Of course, it was only a matter of time before young people with potential like Yun Jian would truly become national advanced special forces after joining the organization. Yun Jian nodded again. Naturally, she had no objections. The teachers were still in a daze when Gu Junjian left the school after instructing their homeroom teacher, Teacher Yu. It had only been a short while and Yun Jian had become a member of the country's special forces. However, the teachers were not dumb enough to spread the news everywhere. After all, if they were the ones who spread the news, they would not be able to compensate for it even if they had 10 times the courage. Hence, other than the people present, no one else knew about what had happened in the office. Friday after school, Yun Jian walked out of the school gate with Chen Xini and Zhang Xiaofeng. Behind them was Ling Yichen. Just as they reached the school gate, Yun Jian saw Gu Junjian waiting for her in a flashy military jeep. When he saw Yun Jian, Gu Junjian honked his horn. Yun Jian turned to tell Chen Xini and the rest, "You guys go first." Then, under their watchful gazes, she walked towards the dark green military jeep. She opened the car door and sat in the front passenger seat. Then, under everyone's gaze, the military jeep slowly drove away and left their field of vision. Gu Junjian drove for a long distance, even out of the bustling city area and into the suburbs. Not long after driving out of the city's downtown area, Yun Jian saw a neat row of military garrisons in the forest. When they passed the guard post and entered the area, Gu Junjian got out of the car and walked over to open the door for Yun Jian. He said, "We're here. Come with me." Yun Jian nodded and followed Gu Junjian to a military training camp. Just as she opened the door of the military training camp, Yun Jian felt a sense of danger coming towards her. Without thinking, she reached out her hand and grabbed in front of her. A harmless dart with a broken arrowhead had deviated from its trajectory and was flying straight towards Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian caught it in the middle of her palm. Ah, it deviated from its trajectory again. I threw it wrong again. A sorrowful female voice was heard. Then, a young girl about the same age as Yun Jian appeared in front of them. "Chuning, what's wrong with you?" Seeing this, Gu Junjian breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yun Jian reacted quickly. Otherwise, even if the dart had no arrowhead, it would still hurt someone. He scolded the young girl. "Officer Gu, I didn't do it on purpose." Chuning pouted, feeling wronged. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, and she looked straight at Yun Jian. She was overjoyed. Wow, is she the new little girl? Chapter 165. That's great. Chuning's face lit up with joy when she heard that. Chuning was not the only one in the military training camp. When they heard that Yun Jian was the new girl, a few boys who were training nearby ran over. Chuning was speaking to Yun Jian in a cheerful tone. "Hello, I'm Chuning. I'm 16 this year. You must be the new girl. You're so pretty, can we be friends?" As she spoke, Chuning blinked her clear and pretty eyes and looked at Yun Jian with a friendly gaze. "I'm Yun Jian." Yun Jian did not answer her directly, but since she was willing to introduce herself, it meant that she had acknowledged her. "Little girl, I'm Chu Xiangnan. I'm 18 this year. You can call me Big Brother, haha." A boy squeezed in from the side. He laughed heartily and pushed Chuning out of the way. Then, he stood in front of Yun Jian and introduced himself teasingly. Yun Jian only nodded slightly when she saw that. During this time, she took the opportunity to look around. There were not many people in the military training camp. Other than herself and Gu Junjian, there were only 6 people. They were all between 15 and 20 years old, and she was the youngest in the group. Presumably, this group of people was the same as her, who had been selected by Gu Junjian as candidates for the Advanced Special Forces. "Alright, you guys get to know each other." Gu Junjian did not disturb them. After he said that, he turned to look at Yun Jian and said to her, "From now on, you'll come here to train every week. Of course, if you have something to do, you can report it in advance." The facilities here were very complete. It was a good place to train and improve one's skills. Yun Jian nodded naturally. She had been lacking a place like this to train her skills thoroughly. Now, she was even more satisfied with her decision to join the Special Forces. Gu Junjian left after giving his instructions. As soon as he left, a group of people surrounded Yun Jian and introduced themselves to her. Yun Jian finally got to know him. Including himself, there were only 7 people here. Among the 7 people, there were 3 girls and 4 boys. From this, it could be seen that among the Special Forces, boys' stamina was indeed better than girls. Just as the group was introducing themselves, a woman's sarcastic voice sounded. "Humph, childish. They really look like a bunch of idiots who have never seen the world." The voice belonged to the other girl besides Chuning. Ever since Yun Jian arrived, this girl hadn't made a sound, nor had she walked over. Now that she was snorting, people couldn't help but take another look at her. Yun Jian ignored her. "That's just how she is." "Humph, that's why I was so lonely here before. I didn't even have a girl to talk to." Chuning spat at the girl and explained to Yun Jian. After saying that, Chuning couldn't help but yell at the girl. "Jiang Weiwei, you're the idiot." After yelling angrily, Chuning turned to look at Yun Jian and chuckled. "But she's the most powerful one in our group. We can't deny that. But with her personality, not many people can stand her. You'll know in the future." Chu Ning grinned as she said that. Yunjian nodded. Pursing her lips, she also smiled slightly. After everyone introduced themselves, they were no longer familiar with each other, and returned to their own training grounds to begin training. Chapter 166. Yunjian nodded. She could understand why Gejunjian would train them like this. After all, even as an advanced special forces candidate, one needed to be capable to be selected. More importantly, as an advanced special forces soldier, the enemies they would face in the future would not be simple. If they were not skilled enough, they could very well lose their lives. Under such circumstances, it was natural that they had to strengthen their physical training. As for the other 6 people who were selected like her, Yunjian had already gotten to know all of them. Yunjian did not hesitate and started training with the rest of them. For a moment, there were no other noises in the military training camp. There was only the sound of training and everyone sweating profusely. When it was time to go home at night, Gejunjian drove everyone home and asked them to gather at the military training camp the next morning. Yunjian nodded. She usually trained by herself, but now that she had a place to train, it would be easier for her to improve her skills. The next day, as expected, Gejunjian brought everyone to the military training camp early in the morning. Yunjian did not ask Gejunjian to tell Qinyiru about this. Qinyiru only thought that the school teacher wanted the students to stay in class to make up for the extra lessons, even during the weekends. That was why Yunjian left early and returned late on the weekends. That morning, everyone arrived at the military training camp. Yunjian jumped out of the military jeep and walked towards the military training camp. The other 6 got out of the jeep and walked with Yunjian. The morning sun shone on their bright foreheads and reflected their silhouettes. A new journey had just begun here. Outside the military training camp, there was a spacious field with no one around. Gejunjian stood with his hands behind his back. Looking at the 7 people lined up in a row, he said seriously, "From this morning onwards, I'm going to increase your training. Each of you will carry 5 kilograms of weight and do a 5 kilometers cross-country run." This was the way Special Forces soldiers were trained. However, Gejunjian had reduced their weights. A normal Special Forces soldier would usually be fully equipped for cross-country running. Fully armed off-road vehicles with a weight of more than 20 kilograms. Even so, the people present all let out miserable shrieks. "Ah, that will tire me to death." The first cry came from Chu Ning, while the second was Chu Xiangnan's sorrowful cry. In spite of it, the others, including Yunjian, did not make a sound. Yunjian also noticed that Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan were the most active among them. To put it bluntly, he was talking too much. However, Gejunjian pretended not to hear him. He said, "All right, follow me to equip yourselves. We'll start the morning training immediately." In fact, the cross-country running training for Special Forces soldiers was somewhat similar to the running training for students during military training. However, the cross-country running required a lot of stamina. Hence, the runners had to have a lot of stamina to complete the entire run. After everyone had equipped themselves and was about to start the cross-country run, Chu Xiangnan did not forget to tease Yunjian. He wanted to show off in front of the girl. "Little Yunjian, you're new here. If you can't keep up, you'll have to run slower later." To Chu Xiangnan and others, Yunjian was a newbie who had just joined, so she was naturally the weakest among them. At this moment, a voice interrupted them. "Is everyone equipped?" The person who spoke was the leader of the 7, Lu Shiyin. Lu Shiyin was the leader of the 7. This was decided before Yunjian joined the team. Although Jiang Weiwei was the strongest among them, Lu Shiyin was relatively more mature. Hence, Gejunjian made him the leader. "Leader, we're ready," one of the boys replied with a bright smile. He even turned to Chu Xiangnan and teased, "Chu Xiangnan, stop teasing little girls. Every time a new member joins the team, you'll nag for half a day. Little girls need to be protected. Why are you dawdling all day long?" Chapter 167. Go, go, go. It's none of your business. Chu Xiangnan loved to flaunt his authority, especially in front of girls. He was even more unwilling to lose his dignity, so he retorted. Yun Jian pursed her lips indifferently and remained silent. She put on all her combat gear and stood still. Among the 7 of them, Yun Jian, Chu Ning, and Jiang Weiwei were the girls. As for the boys, apart from Chu Xiangnan, Fang Xiaoran, and the team leader Lu Shiyin, there was another boy. In a team, there would naturally be a team leader and a vice leader. The remaining boy was called Hong Fan. He was an average-looking, tall, skinny and handsome boy. At the same time, Hong Fan was a very quiet boy. He did not say a word at all. However, since Gu Junjian had recruited him into the team, there must be a reason. Hong Fan, on the other hand, was currently the vice captain. Everyone is ready. Let's start, Lu Shiyin said without Gu Yunjian's instructions. With that, Lu Shiyin took the lead and ran towards the cross-country morning jog route. Humph. Jiang Weiwei glanced at everyone from the corner of her eyes and glared at Yun Jian arrogantly. She was the second to run out. Then everyone ran along the route. Yun Jian was not in a hurry. She waited for everyone to run out before running leisurely at the back. Gu Junjian, who was watching from the starting point, narrowed his eyes. He could not figure out why Yun Jian was running at the back, instead of rushing out like a swarm of bees, after the start of the race like the rest of the team. After all, although the morning cross-country race did not take into account the rankings, everyone had some idea of the results. Little sister Yun Jian, don't be in a hurry. Take your time if you can't run. I'll go first. Chu Xiangnan saw that Yun Jian was running at the back and waved at her. Finally, he carried the combat gear on his shoulder and ran forward. At this moment Jiang Weiwei, who was running in first place, was already far ahead. Yun Jian maintained the same pace as the last one. Her pace was neither fast nor slow, but it was just right. Meanwhile, the few people in front of her gradually felt their footsteps become heavier. The 5 kilograms of combat gear on their shoulders were not for show. It was quite uncomfortable to have to drag oneself forward, while carrying the gear on one's back at the same time. For a moment, only the sound of panting could be heard on the road. Only Yun Jian, who was running at the back, was closing the distance between her and the person in front of her. The biggest difference between Yun Jian and Chu Xiangnan was that Chu Xiangnan was already panting. On the other hand, Yun Jian, other than her slightly red cheeks, she was not even panting. Was not even panting. Of her breath. Of the race. Of SSS of the race. Of his of the world. Yun Jian had actually overtaken me. He did not even hear Yun Jian's heavy panting. Did that mean that Yun Jian was not tired at all? He was about to die of exhaustion, but this new little girl was walking so easily that it was as if she was just walking. Chu Xiangnan was running at the back. Because the route was straight, and there were no trees around, he could clearly see the position of the person in front of him, even if there were bends. Therefore he was running at the back. He watched as Yun Jian maintained a steady pace, and overtook the people in front of her, who were gradually slowing down. His heart was filled with shock. She was just a new member. Generally, the new members were the weakest. They would only improve after a period of training. Today was Yun Jian's second day at the training ground. At this moment, she had already overtaken everyone, and was running in second place. She was chasing after the strongest person in the group, Jiang Weiwei. Chapter 168. Phew. Damn. Yun Jian is about to overtake Jiang Weiwei. Fang Xiaoran, who had been overtaken by Yun Jian, shouted loudly. He finally realized that he had lost his composure. Not talking while running was the basis for conserving energy. Fang Xiaoran obviously couldn't control himself. At this moment, Yun Jian was about to overtake Jiang Weiwei. When Jiang Weiwei heard Fang Xiaoran's complaints, she realized that Yun Jian was already right behind her. She frowned deeply. She was born into a military family, and her ancestors were all soldiers or special forces. Her father was a high-ranking military officer, and her mother was also an outstanding soldier. She inherited the family business, and had been practicing her skills since she was a child. Hence, she was naturally the best among the group. Perhaps because of this, Jiang Weiwei had always looked down on Chu Ning and the rest. It was because in her heart, they were not even her opponents. Jiang Weiwei was also a competitive person. She also looked down on Yun Jian. But now that the steady Yun Jian was about to overtake her, she couldn't stay calm anymore. Her pride wouldn't allow anyone to destroy it, let alone this newcomer Yun Jian. Jiang Weiwei sprinted even harder, and she gradually felt as if her feet weighed 1,000 pounds. Seeing that she was gradually slowing down, and Yun Jian was about to catch up with her, Jiang Weiwei's vanity acted up. Just as Yun Jian was about to overtake her, she made an extreme move in front of everyone. She turned sideways and blocked Yun Jian's path. She reached out and slammed into Yun Jian. At this moment, everyone was already exhausted and Jiang Weiwei took advantage of the situation. A normal person would definitely fall to the ground after being hit by her. However, Yun Jian seemed to have predicted Jiang Weiwei's move. She dodged to the side the moment Jiang Weiwei turned her body to crash into her. At the same time, she reached out her hand to block with lightning speed. She had already slipped past Jiang Weiwei's side and ran to the first position. This unforeseen event caused the few people following behind to widen their eyes in shock. They were watching from afar, but they could see everything clearly. The move that Yun Jian had just performed was the move that Ge Junjian had demonstrated to them earlier. They didn't even know this move, so how did Yun Jian learn it? Or rather, when Ge Junjian demonstrated to them, Yun Jian had not even joined the team yet. Could it be that she had long grasped the effective moves of these Special Forces soldiers? What they didn't know was that not only did Yun Jian know the moves of the Special Forces, she even knew the moves that the Special Forces didn't know. Jiang Weiwei's shock was no less than anyone else's. She was well aware of her own skills. Even an adult would have lost his or her composure, let alone a group of Special Forces candidates like them. And Yun Jian actually dodged his attack? Looking ahead again, Yun Jian's petite and agile figure had already flashed past a hillside, running towards an area that no one could see. At the starting point, Ge Junjian stood there and waited. The starting point and the finishing point were the same. If they ran along that path, they would eventually run back to the starting point. So he had been standing there the whole time. It had only been 10 minutes since the few of them started running, so Ge Junjian wasn't in a hurry. For an armed cross-country run like this, even an adult Special Forces soldier would be considered very good if they could finish it in 15 minutes. From Ge Junjian's point of view, Yun Jian and the rest were just teenagers. The estimated time that he had given Yun Jian and the rest was 30 minutes. Thinking about it, the fastest person should be able to finish the race in 30 minutes. Chapter 169. Yun Jian completed the 5 kilograms 5 kilometers off-road run in just 10 minutes. Ge Junjian was almost shocked. To be honest, he had trained quite a number of young talents. Moreover, all of the Special Forces that he had trained had become famous big shots in the end. However, he had never seen anyone with such amazing ability. Reporting mission accomplished. Yun Jian reported when she reached the finish line and took off her uniform. You completed it. Well done. This was the highest praise that Ge Junjian had ever given her. However, apart from Yun Jian, Ge Junjian's prediction was right. Jiang Weiwei came in second. Jiang Weiwei finished the entire run. By the time she reached the finish line, she was already panting from exhaustion. When she reached the finish line, she held onto the pole and panted. This was a stark contrast to Yun Jian. Jiang Weiwei completed the 5 kilograms 5 kilometers off-road run in a short time. However, with Yun Jian's example as a lesson, her results were not good enough. The rest of the people also reached the finish line one after another. Chu Xiangnan was the slowest. Although he was much slower than the others, he also completed the run in 45 minutes. Obviously, the new morning run with weights was just the beginning. The rest of the morning and afternoon was still free practice. At 6 o'clock, Ge Junjian drove the jeep to the entrance of the training camp on time to send everyone home. Yun Jian and the others got into the jeep. Just as the jeep drove out of the sentry post, Gu Junjian suddenly stepped on the emergency brake. Yin Jian and the others were sitting at the back. Chu Ning and the others almost hit their heads on the glass window beside the jeep. Officer Gu, what's wrong? What's wrong? Chu Ning asked anxiously. Yin Jian saw a familiar black Lamborghini blocking the jeep driven by Gu Junjian through the glass window in front of the jeep from the back. She narrowed her eyes and her eyes lit up. The corners of her mouth unconsciously curled into a smile. Yin Jian opened the door and jumped out of the jeep. Under the gaze of several people in the jeep, she walked towards the black Lamborghini, looking at Siyi's handsome face, which she hadn't seen in a long time. Her lips curved into a smile that even she herself didn't notice. Why are you here? She asked. She knew that Siyi could find out that she was here just by moving his fingers. Get in. Siyi tilted her head and looked at Yin Jian. Her gaze softened as she sized her up, as if she was looking at a rare treasure. Yin Jian smiled. She ran to the jeep and said to Gu Junjian, "My friend is here to pick me up. You don't have to worry about me. Go ahead." With that, she ran back to the Lamborghini and opened the door to the passenger seat. Like a little girl in love, she happily sat in the car. Yin Jian did not notice her actions at all. Then, the Lamborghini sped away under the gaze of Gu Junjian and the rest, leaving the group to let their imagination run wild. Chu Xiangnan in particular wore a sad expression inside. So Lil Sis Yin Jian is taken. I was thinking of wooing her. In the Lamborghini that was driving away, Yin Jian turned to look at Siyi and asked, "When did you come back to country Z?" Just now. Siyi paused and said something that made one's imagination run wild. I came to look for you right after I got back to Longmen City. Siyi did not actually say that he did not plan to return to Longmen City. He had stayed in Longmen City earlier because of the sandalwood box, and now that he had gotten it, he did not want to come back. He had no reason to come to a small place like Longmen City. Chapter 170. Speaking of the sandalwood box, Siyi didn't forget the purpose of their trip. He drove the car into a small forest halfway. What are you doing? Yin Jian was stunned. At this moment, Siyi had already parked the car. He moved his handsome face closer to Yin Jian's, and his warm breath almost sprayed onto her face. The two of them were very close to each other. They were so close that they could kiss if they leaned forward slightly. There was a moment of silence. Just as Yin Jian couldn't stand the atmosphere and wanted to turn the tables around, Siyi spoke up. With a flip of his hand, he took out the sandalwood box and passed it to Yin Jian again, saying, "You know this box." Previously, Siyi had used the sandalwood box to test Yin Jian. Yin Jian said that she didn't know what the sandalwood box was. Siyi was already suspicious of this matter at that time. Now that he took out the sandalwood box again, he didn't use a questioning tone to ask Yin Jian. Instead, he used a firm tone to confirm that she knew what the sandalwood box was. Yin Jian looked directly at Siyi. She could clearly see herself reflected in Siyi's sharp eyes. In the end, she nodded and closed her eyes. After a while, she opened them again. Her eyes were clear. Yes, I know this box. Because it was the indirect cause of the death of her biological brother. Yin Jian didn't say the last sentence. Then do you want to know the secret of this box? Siyi didn't mind that Yin Jian had lied to him earlier. After a pause, he raised his good-looking eyebrows and said in a clear voice, "Or to be more specific, why are the people in the underworld, and even the reclusive old men who occupy the positions of international heroes, not hesitating to come out and fight for it?" Yin Jian naturally wanted to know the answer to this question. She didn't want to play with Siyi anymore. She could tell that Siyi's measurement skills were unfathomable. She nodded and asked, "Why?" Siyi narrowed his eyes and raised his beautiful almond-shaped eyes. His magnetic lips opened and closed. He didn't beat around the bush and directly said, "Because it has the power to bring the dead back to life. Resurrection." Upon hearing these words, Yin Jian's eyelids twitched violently. "You don't believe me?" Siyi narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Yin Jian. If she had heard in her previous life that this small sandalwood box had the power to bring the dead back to life, She would not have believed it. But now she didn't dare to doubt it. She was reborn because of it. How could she not believe it? Why are you telling me these things? Yunjian pursed her lips. Her lip gloss had a natural luster and looked dazzling. Because. Siyi looked at Yunjian from head to toe and finally smiled. Because you need to know. What did he mean? Yunjian frowned when she heard Siyi's words. She needed to know? Did Siyi already suspect her? Or did he already know that she was reborn? How is that possible? Besides Snake. Lizard, no one else knew about this, and Snake. Lizard would never betray her. You don't have to guess too much. You just have to remember that whatever I do will never harm you. Ce raised his eyebrows and looked straight at Yunjian as he spoke. Yunjian pondered for a while, and finally nodded unconsciously. She had never thought that she had already become someone's prey in the circle. Ce's fair and slender fingers rubbed against the steering wheel twice. He tilted his head and spoke again. The sandalwood box has the power to bring the dead back to life, and is extremely powerful. However, there is no way to verify whether this is true or not. So it's not just those old fellows who want to get their hands on it. Even the top scholars in the International Medical Academy are searching for its whereabouts and trying to decipher its secrets. He paused and stared at Yunjian with his beautiful eyes. They were so warm that it seemed as if flames could be lit. And now I have the latest news. This sandalwood box was excavated from an ancient tomb in the south. I think there will be new discoveries there. Moreover, many people have already gone there. However, it's strange that the people who entered the ancient tomb were completely cut off from the outside world not long after. None of the people who entered the tomb survived. Chapter 171. Under Yunjian's gaze, Ce flashed a handsome smile and nodded. That's right. I came back to Longmen City, this time to visit you, before heading to the catacomb. Even if none of those who entered the catacomb returned alive, he still had to go due to certain reasons. Even if the price was his life. That was why he came to see her before he left. Yunjian frowned slightly at his words and kept quiet for 2 seconds before saying, "Come back alive." It was the most touching thing she had ever said. As a secret agent in her past life, she had killed until she was numb. Her only thought was to survive even if she died. To her, there was only one person who could make her say that, be it in her past or present life, and that was Ce. Ce tilted his handsome face as well, the corners of his lips lifting slowly as he replied, "Definitely." Perhaps they had not spent much time together, but some feelings would change unknowingly. Ce drove Yunjian back to the villa and left. Yunjian did not know what kind of mentality she was holding at the moment. She was slowly beginning to realize that her feelings for Ce were different from her feelings for her brother, Yunyi, and Zhang Xiaofeng. That slightly warm feeling made her palpitate slightly. In the days that followed, Yunjian would go to the military training camp for training during the weekends, and attend classes from Monday to Friday as usual. During these few days of classes, Yunjian trained Zhang Xiaofeng daily. However, no matter how hard and tiring it was, he did not complain about it, just as he had said earlier. Ling Yichen, on the other hand, came uninvited when Zhang Xiaofeng was training, running in the morning, and going through a series of training sessions with him. This made some girls in school think that the two hunks, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, had gone mad. This was especially true for Ling Yichen, who changed girlfriends as easily as changing clothes. Usually, his greatest interest was to tease beauties. During this period of time, he did not even care about the confessions of some girls. This made many girls in the school secretly sad for quite a while. After school on Friday, Yunjian, Chen Xini, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Ling Yichen had just stepped out of the school gates and walked past a sparsely populated area when a figure suddenly appeared and blocked their path. Yunjian, who had always been vigilant, felt that the atmosphere was not right. Just as she was about to make a move, she saw the other party clearly. The other party was a young girl with 2 neatly combed pigtails and a youthful appearance. Yunjian recognized her at a glance. She was Snake, Lizard's subordinate, and also a high-ranking member of the Kosha mercenaries. Her code name was Tanuki. The civet cat looked like a 16 or 17-year-old girl, but she was actually around 25 years old. She just looked young and had a baby face. Beside Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two were shocked when they saw the civet cat suddenly appear. They didn't know what was going on. She asked you to come? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She was naturally the snake lizard. Yes. The civet cat nodded. As she spoke, she took out a car key from her pocket and handed it to Yun Jian. She asked me to send the car key over, the civet cat explained. Actually, the civet cat was just following orders from her superior snake lizard, who had sent the civet cat over to deliver the car key. The civet cat also didn't know who Yun Jian was. For someone like Yun Jian, other than her own confidants, no one could get close to her in her previous life. The civet cat was snake lizard's subordinate, but she was no exception. Yun Jian reached out and caught the car key that the civet cat threw over. She asked, "Where's the car?" She had received a text message from snake lizard early in the morning. She would send someone over to deliver her beloved car from her previous life. It's inside. The civet cat pointed at a dead end. She said, "The car is here. I'm leaving." She turned around and left without any hesitation. Her mission was just to send the car over. After a few exchanges, Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two who were standing at the side were extremely suspicious. They saw that Yun Jian had already walked towards the dead end. The three of them hurriedly followed to take a look. However, after turning a corner, a beautiful red sports car stopped at the end of the road. The red high-class sports car was bright and beautiful. Its appearance was exquisite and beautiful, but it was a sharp contrast to the surrounding scenery. Chapter 172. Boys loved sports cars, racing cars, guns, and all sorts of cool things. At the same time, they also loved to study such books. When Ling Yichen's family background allowed him to, he paid special attention to such things as well. Of course, he knew about famous cars. And this new LaFerrari supercar was a famous car that the boys always talked about when they got together. Ling Yichen would never have thought that one of the only 3 sports cars in the world would be in Yun Jian's hands. Therefore, the shock he felt just now could not be described with words. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Xini also looked at Yun Jian with surprise in their eyes. On the other end, Yun Jian reached out and snapped her fingers. She happily circled around her beloved car. Then, she used the car key to open the door remotely and stood in front of the car. She patted the car hood and turned her head to the side, waving at Ling Yichen and the other two. "How about it? Do you want to come in and sit?" Yes, of course." Before the other two could agree, Ling Yichen was the first to run over, looking extremely excited. This LaFerrari sports car only had 2 seats, but the back seat could accommodate people. However, if one wanted to sit in the back seat, they would have to climb over from the front seat. Ling Yichen and Zhang Xiaofeng were gentlemanly and gave the front seat to Chen Xini. After the 3 of them were seated, Yun Jian also got into the driver's seat. At this moment, Zhang Xiaofeng suddenly thought of a problem and suddenly asked, "Hey, mister, you know how to drive? You have a driver's license?" Ling Yichen and Chen Xini also noticed this and looked at Yun Jian eagerly. However, Yun Jian lifted her chin and raised her eyebrows. "No, but I know how to drive." After that, she locked the door, started the car, and stepped on the accelerator. The car sped off like an arrow. She had not driven her beloved car for a long time. This feeling was as if she had returned to her previous life. Back then, she drove this car and carried out all kinds of tasks. In the car, Ling Yichen and the other two were so scared that their faces turned purple. Yun Jian stepped on the accelerator and didn't let go of the brake. She sped up, and the surrounding scenery was like a fleeting cloud. It was so fast that she couldn't see anything clearly. There were a few times when she was about to hit something she shouldn't. But in the end, she was able to turn the steering wheel and avoid it. Ling Yichen and the other two came from well-to-do families, so it was not like they had never taken a car before. But they had never been in such a fast car before. It wasn't until Yun Jian parked the car next to a roadside barbecue stall that the three of them got out of the car with their faces flushed red, as if their souls had left their bodies. The first thing Ling Yichen said when he got out of the car was, F***ck, my soul almost jumped out of my body because of you. Yun Jian, are you from a racing background? Yun Jian just smiled. She spread her hands and said, to apologize, I'll treat you to barbecue. When they heard that they were going to eat barbecue, the three of them became excited again. Their saliva almost flowed out. Once Yun Jian locked the car door, the four of them went to the barbecue stall at once. This roadside barbecue stall was the most famous in Longmen City, because the food here was cleaner than other places, and they were all authentic. Yun Jian and the other three had just walked into the tent to pick out some barbecue skewers. A sharp and surprised female voice rang. Yun Jian, why are you here? It seemed like she had not met anyone familiar, but Yun Jian was no stranger to such a malicious voice. She was exasperated that she had to bump into someone she knew just to eat barbecue. Turning around, she saw a girl sitting at a round table, with a group of men and women around her. They were obviously here for barbecue as well. In Yun Jian's memory, this girl was none other than the daughter of Qin Yure's elder brother, Qin Liqian, who had just returned to the Qin family a few days ago. Her name was Qin Fenger. Qin Fenger was also enrolled in a high school in Longmen City. Although it was not as good as First High School, it was already impressive to be able to stand out in Xinjiang town. Chapter 173. In her memory, this Qin Fenger hated the original owner of her body. Sometimes they would even deliberately find someone to insult the original owner, or in front of the elders, they would pick out the original owner's poor grades and make a big fuss about it. In the end, everyone in town found out that Qin Yuru had given birth to a daughter who was an idiot with the worst grades in school. Qin Fenger looked average, and her facial features were average as well. She did not stand out among the crowd. Most importantly, her face was covered in freckles, making her look even uglier. One of the main reasons she hated the original owner of her body was that she was so outstanding, had good grades, was popular, and was well liked by the teachers. Why was Yun Jian, an idiot with terrible academic performance, so pretty? Yet she had to wear such an ugly face. Hence, Qin Fenger was utterly fixated on Yun Jian and bore a grudge against her. Yun Jian was not in a hurry with Qin Fenger. She merely glanced at her amused. If you can be here, why can't I? Yun Jian retorted bluntly. She then turned around and pretended that Qin Fenger and her friends were not there. She pointed at a few skewers and reported to the owner. 50 mutton skewers, 20 sausages, and 10 rice cakes. As she spoke, she turned to ask Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest. Do you guys want anything else? Jian, I want 5 more tofu skewers. Chen Sini did not hold back as she told Yun Jian with a wink. Give me 2 more pairs of grilled wings. Ling Yichen said with a grin with a press of his lips. Same for me and Sini, Zhang Xiaofeng replied. Qin Fenger, who was on the other end of the line, was taken aback by Yun Jian's retort. Since when did this little b***th become so arrogant? How dare she refute her? More importantly, Yun Jian, and the 3 people beside Yun Jian, were acting like she did not exist. Qin Fenger had a stomach full of anger, especially after Yun Jian ignored Qin Fenger. A boy with a face full of red spots and acne sitting next to Qin Fenger mocked her. Hey Qin Fenger, look at the little beauty ignoring you. As he spoke, the boy whistled as he sized up Yun Jian. For a moment, everyone who sat with Qin Fenger was focused on Yun Jian. Qin Fenger was most annoyed by this feeling. Her grades were better than Yun Jian's, and she was better than her in everything. Why was she able to attract everyone's attention so easily? Why? Coincidentally, the owner of the restaurant had already prepared the barbecue skewers and seasoned them. He put them all on plates and handed them to Yun Jian and the others. The shop owner smiled foolishly and said, Young lady, take it. There's a total of 85 yuan here. The prices of goods in 1998 were much lower than now. At that time, 80 RMB was enough for a student to live on for a long time. Yun Jian was treating today. She was very generous and looked like she was going to have a good meal. When Qin Finger heard this, she was secretly shocked. Qin Yura's monthly salary was only a few hundred yuan. Yun Jian was treating people to a meal here, and it was close to 100 yuan. Where did she get the money? Hence, Qin Finger used this as an excuse to pick on Yun Jian again. She saw Yun Jian take out 100 yuan from her pocket, and her eyes turned red. She pointed at Yun Jian and shouted, "Yun Jian, where did you get so much money? Don't think I don't know that your mother only earns a few hundred yuan a month working for others. She even has to pay for your family's expenses." Then Qin Finger sized up Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Chen Sini, who were sitting beside Yun Jian. She saw that the three of them were wearing branded coats. They were the symbol of wealth from head to toe. Qin Finger could not help but point at Yun Jian. She twitched her mouth and slandered her. "Yun Jian, don't tell me you're their sugar baby?" As soon as she said that, the people sitting beside Qin Finger were obviously stunned. They looked at Yun Jian with disdain. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."